Then we are ready to start since we have a quorum. Welcome to everyone that's joined. We again have a very exciting and packed meeting, including Councilmember Mary Che, who will come after community discussions. And so I'd like to, since we have a quorum, I'd like to start off with any changes and amendments to the agenda that we posted last week.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask for unanimous consent to consider the briefest of statements related to the route for the, I'm sorry, the,
Bell ringer.
thank you, for the bell ringer bicycle fundraiser, which is largely the same as the one that we considered several months back.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Riley, are you making edits to the online version so that we can reference as we go through?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, thanks so much.
Madam Chair, I have, this is Commissioner Elkins, I have a couple of amendments I would like to suggest to the agenda.
Yes.
I would like to ask that we consider approving authority for me to testify at the upcoming budget hearings on the Department of Transportation and the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. And then also to consider authorization for up to $200 to add to the Zoom account as needed during the in-between meetings. So those three things.
Yes, and are you okay, Commissioner Elkins, if our resolution for budget hearings and consumer regulatory affairs are included in one resolution? Or do you want those separate?
I'm sorry, I missed that. For the two on the
Or consumer and regulatory affairs.
in one resolution, that would be fine.
And then one resolution. Okay, great.
And then a separate one for the authorization for the Zoom.
Yes, I was going to request that one. So you preempted me on that one.
Okay.
All right, any other requests for addition? All right, I have one additional request that I'd like to add to the beginning of the official actions, which is a resolution of recognition. And I'm requesting unanimous consent for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we ready to adopt the agenda for this meeting? Any other changes?
We also need the letter requesting additional support for the OANC.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I think Riley is correct. Technically, we need to add that the agenda calls for approval of the testimony, and there's a letter in addition on the same subject.
All right, any other changes to the agenda for tonight? All right, shall I make a resolution now or resolution to adopt the agenda for tonight?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. All right, then we are ready to go with the police report. And I think we have Lieutenant Haskis here. Let's see, Riley, do you mind unmuting Lieutenant Haskis?
I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are.
Oh, great. Good evening, commissioners and everybody else zooming in. I know it's a very busy agenda, so I'll try not to take up too much time. terms of crime for the month of March, down quite a bit in total crime from March of last year, down by 50% to be exact. There were 22 total crimes reported in the month of March last year, 11 total crimes, and that's being violent crimes and property crimes. There were no violent crimes. All 11 were property crimes reported in the month of March in the ANC. So of the 11, let's see here, 4 of them were theft from autos, 5 were thefts not involving autos, and 2 were motor vehicle thefts. Again, all numbers down from last year. 7 motor vehicle thefts at the month of March last year, 2 this year, 4 theft from autos this year, 12 last year. We were up slightly actually in theft not from others this year as opposed to last year, 5 as opposed to 3, but overall a drop of 50%. No violent crimes in the month of March this year, and 11 property crimes, no burglaries. Year to date, we're still down quite a bit from last year. There were 91 reported crimes at this point last year, 37 this year. So how much of that is COVID related? I don't know. I'm sure there is some that is part of it. We are down in terms of most measures, including burglaries, 3 reported so far this year as opposed to 4 at this point last year. 16 theft from autos reported so far this year as opposed to 56 at this point last year, down on thefts not involving autos, 11 as opposed to 17 at this point last year, 5 motor vehicle thefts as opposed to 14 at this point last year. Also good news so far for the month of April in the ANC, no reported property crimes or violent crimes. Officer McElwee and Officer Gibson have been doing quite a bit on traffic enforcement on MacArthur Boulevard, and Officer McElwee quite a bit on Foxhall Road. So any other traffic issues, I will very gladly forward to Officer McElwee and others in the who work for MPD in the ANC. With that being said, any questions?
I do, please, Chairperson Ela.
Hi.
Hi, Lieutenant. How are you? Thank you for reaching out. I know I missed a call from you just about 10 minutes ago, but I did have a question regarding an incident in Spring Valley. I believe that occurred Sunday evening at University and Tilden, where there was a pretty active police response. I understand because of concern about individuals acting in a suspicious manner in the neighborhood. Do you happen to have any more information to share on that?
Yes, one of your neighbors found it very suspicious that 2 people asked him for the time, and then after he gave the time, then they asked him for his cell phone, to borrow his cell phone, along the lines of that, to see his cell phone or borrow his cell phone. So he felt that that was very suspicious, and we came. We stopped the individuals, and fortunately it didn't go past, there was no taking of anything, but we are worried, and the resident there was worried that it might have been leading up to something worse. But we have forwarded the information to other agencies.
There were some like
So
remote around here a second.
we followed up, and we have gotten other agencies involved. I can't go into, since they were juveniles, I can't go into the backgrounds, but the information was forwarded to other agencies.
Thanks for providing a bit more context. Just second item briefly, I recently had a 311 request for stop sign additions in the neighborhood closed with a note stating I should contact MPD because it was an enforcement matter. So just wanted to ask you in this forum about the best way to get you that information. I assume send you an email, but if there is a more formal process we should be aware of and other commissioners should be aware of, please let me know.
Yeah, so it's news to me. I always thought that 311 was a way to contact MPD if something recently has changed. From my understanding, we are looped into 311 requests. With this particular request of yours, I'm going to check with the Office of Unified Communications if that was the best way to handle that. But yeah, please email me a stop sign request and I'll send somebody up there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Lieutenant Haskins? All right, then we're ready to move on to Lieutenant or Officer McElwee.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Glad to see everybody out there. Sorry I got here a little late. Real quick, I don't know what Lieutenant touched on, but I got some stats that I like to provide. We hit MacArthur Boulevard real hard last month. Officer Gibson and myself, the 4600 block and the 5000 block. Also, in conjunction to that, I had the speed machine out there from March 8th to March 19th. The speed machine tells you basically how fast you're going. And it's a great traffic calming tool that we use. And people think, the motors think that they're going to get a ticket, and they usually slow down for that. And I actually, I positioned myself, I placed the machine right after the camera when you're going inbound. And when they went past the camera, they saw the machine, they slowed down. And when they went past the machine, if they accelerated, and I had zero tolerance, when I say zero tolerance, 6 miles an hour over the speed limit, I stopped them and they were issued a ticket because you had 2 warnings prior to meeting myself down there during the traffic stop. Total tickets written out there on MacArthur Boulevard were 216. That's combined Officer Gibson and myself. And there were some cell phone, expired tags, and insurance. I also concentrated on Foxhall Road for the last 3 months, since I haven't been on here in the last 2 months. So I added 2 more months. I had 75 speeding violations out there on Foxhall. Also, I concentrated on 2900 block of Arizona, 3000 block of New Mexico, 4800 block of Canal Road during rush hour, 4700 and 4100 block of Mass Avenue, and the 4700 block of Reservoir. Stop sign enforcement, we concentrated on 45th and Garfield, out there near Commissioner Elkins, and Arizona and Lawborough are the stop sign. With that said, I'll take any concerns or questions concerning traffic. I did see one thing about somebody posted a message about the gas leak on MacArthur Boulevard today between 11:30 to 2:30, right there on MacArthur Boulevard, right at Lawborough. They were digging, construction crew was digging, and they struck a gas pipe. It was a large gas pipe, which created the response of the fire department while we waited for the gas company to come out to secure and repair. So we were out there for about 3 hours, and we had to cut traffic up to Watson, and we had to cut it before the hospital, Little Falls Road. There were no injuries. Basically, the folks that live around the area just sheltered in place. We didn't let pedestrians go down the sidewalk, and we certainly didn't let any traffic. So if anybody saw that, I saw one question. That's what that was all about. One last thing, if you have any, if you would like me to check on your house for vacation, I always like to put that out there. Please email me. My email address is my work address. It's my name, Anthony, THONY.McElwee, MCELWEE @dc.gov. And so I don't hold up all your time. If you have any other traffic concerns or complaints, you can also email me. I'll certainly address them. But with the vacation check, 2 days out of the week, 3 days out of the week, I'll stop by your home and I'll even email you to give you a good peace of mind while you're away that everything's good.
Hey,
That's
Officer
all I have.
McElwee, this is Commissioner Del Moral. Just a quick question, and it could very well just be the times that I'm out. I'm noticing that there's a lot of illegal left turns happening in Ward Circle again, and I don't know if
Okay.
just like the traffic patterns are changing. And there's obviously more cars on the road again, last month or so. But I've been noticing as I'm out there walking the dog there, it just seems like there's a lot of illegal left turns happening again, like on Nebraska back onto Mass.
Okay, yes, and I do monitor that. That was one of my biggest problem areas before they redesigned, and it improved, I say by 70%.
Definitely improved. I agree with you. It had, but like lately, it just seems like it's becoming like the norm is to make the left right there in the middle again. I saw it today, for instance. I saw it 3 times in my times out there.
Okay, I will give it special attention out there, Commissioner. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Hi, this is, sorry, I'll go very quickly since Mary Shea had her hand up. This is Commissioner Rayo. Officer McElvee, you mentioned during the Foxhall Community Association meeting, Salem Lane being something that you would focus on due to the increased cut-throughs during the rush hour, et cetera. As a resident, this is my district as well as I live on Salem Lane. And so I would just add speeding, a lot of speeding over the several months. And so you're probably just only starting to look at that, but we'll look forward to hearing about that in the future. Thank you.
Commissioner, while we're on that, I'm going to also ask Officer Gibson to go out there and enforce that sign and expect to see the speed machine. I wanted to put it out there in the next week. I have another area of concern we have to put it at. I'm going to put it there and expect to see the speed machine out there too.
Then, Mrs. Shea.
Yes, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm sorry I am doing this, but I wanted to say special hello to Officer McElwee. We've done stuff for many years together. I've always been very impressed with him. He's probably one of the best officers out there, and you're lucky to have him. So hi, officer. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mary Shea.
That's all I have.
It's always good to see you. We'll get out there in 201 and visit you there with your stop sign.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We have one in the chat, which is a question on when the city's going to resume ticketing for out-of-state overnight parking.
I didn't know that they actually stopped that. The out-of-state or reciprocity parking is conducted by DPW. They took that away from us a few years ago.
Okay.
Are they not doing that right now?
It doesn't seem like it, no.
Okay. All right, I'm going to look into that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
And then also with some of the DCPS schools, including Man, going back to more kids in person, is it possible to every now and then have an officer take a look at the speeding around the school? I think people have used Man as a cut through a little more often, and now it's getting fairly congested, and yet people are still going pretty fast through that street.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on Macomb and Newark.
Yes, yes,
For
please.
the areas. Okay, we'll certainly put that on our radar.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Any
other?
items?
Yeah, so I'd just like to jump in if I can. This is Andrew from 4700 block of Reservoir. So as with Mary Chad, I'd like just really appreciate the work that you've been doing over the past few months. We've had an issue with trucks speeding down Reservoir, and it's been really great, Officer McElwee, to see you out there. And I think thankfully that problem seems to be slowly but surely going away as the construction phases change. So that's good. Just a couple of things though that I'd just like to request just a little bit extra attention on, if possible. One is Key School is now back next term. They're going to be back 4 days a week, so there's going to be a lot of additional traffic. And at rush hour in the mornings on MacArthur, the traffic speed is pretty high. So sometimes when I'm walking my kids to school, I see you guys out there, sometimes not. But it'd be great if we could just get a little bit extra attention just around kind of 8:30, 8:45 when the kids are walking to school, just so that it's safe. And the other thing is also just relating to schools, that 15-mile-per-hour slow zone, school zone between lab school and OLV, which I think is effective from 7:30 to 4 o'clock. It doesn't really seem to be very much compliance with that. Cars routinely travel much faster than that. So I know that there's an officer often out in front of the lab school, kind of just directing traffic. I don't know whether it's possible for him at all to do any kind of enforcement as well, just to kind of slow the cars down, but also just if it's possible to do some additional enforcement in that of that school zone as well, that'd be great. Thanks so much.
So before you mute yourself, so that was what part of MacArthur Boulevard, Mr. Beath?
So the MacArthur, particularly, so
in the
just
morning,
anywhere down from 4800 block down to Dana Place.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and sometimes I see you guys out there on, I think it's Nebraska. Like particularly in the afternoon, you'll be there, and that's great. But just also in the morning, particularly, I think there's as everybody's rushing to work, there seems to be quite a bit of speeding.
Okay, we'll make an adjustment for you. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, again, it's great to see everybody out there. Please be safe. Have a good night.
Thank you so much for your service. Thank you. All right, we're ready to move on to updates from local institutions. And I thought I might start with GW with Kevin Day. Kevin.
Hello. Yes, I have many screens and it always takes me like a half second to find the mute button amongst my many screens. Good to see you folks today. I have a brief update on our campus plan engagement. Moving this update is pretty brief. I know last month I updated you to let you know that we had started our community engagement outreach with creating 4 advisory groups, each one covering a certain areas of interest, from facilities planning to student life and safety to transportation and parking and community engagement. I think, again, I reported last month that we started that off with a meeting, with our monthly quarterly meeting, where we had the president and the CFO kick off the meeting. We described the work groups, and we have continued to post information on our website where you can get information about what the working groups are, and all the meeting documentation, meeting summaries, PowerPoints are going to be kept there. We're continuing to update our community through our weekly email newsletters. And we'll continue to do that as we move through the process. We've had 4 meetings. These first 4 meetings were preliminary meetings to just sort of lay the groundwork. We have not seen the kind of community participation we had hoped to see. The first meeting we had 3 community members, and then the next 3 meetings we had 1 community member. So as a result of that, we've done some outreach by sending out a survey. We've talked to individual community members that we've worked closely with, and were informed that 4 groups was just too many. So in response to that, we've combined those 4 groups into 2 groups. We now have a facilities and transportation working group, and we have a safety and community life working group. We've also changed the time of those meetings. We were told repeatedly that those meetings fell in the middle of dinner time, and it was really hard to get out, especially if people are already committed to a variety of meetings such as this one, which occur at the 7 o'clock timeframe. So we've moved those meetings to 4 o'clock. We've notified all of the community members. We're continuing to do outreach. The next 2 meetings that I want to talk to you about is the Facilities and Transportation Working Group, which will be meeting at 4 o'clock on April 14th. And then 2 weeks later, the Safety and Community Life Group will be meeting at 4 o'clock. Probably starting after those meetings, we'll be giving more fully detailed presentations on what the university hopes to complete during this campus plan. And as part of our engagement process, we'd like to give a report to the ANC as we move along that process. So what I would like to ask is if we could get assigned a slot on your agenda just to come and talk to you about those, so that I could show the PowerPoints and make different presentations. We just feel it's important not only to do that work with our individual single member district, but we should report to the full ANC, and we'd like to have that opportunity. So my request is that perhaps starting next month, when we have some real details to report, if we could have a slot just on the agenda that we do those reports. And if we don't have anything to say, we can let it go. But rather than sort of fit it into this section, it feels like it really needs its own section.
Sure thing. Kevin, I'm adding to our agenda for 5/4 time in the discussion session.
Great. All right.
We may not be able to do that every month, but try to.
Yep. Okay. All right. That's my update.
So much. I think we have Maria Berry here from AU.
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Maria Berry. I'm the Director of Community Relations here at American University. I don't have too much to report. As you know, our campus has remained closed and our students are working remotely. And that will continue through the end of this semester. I do want folks to know how to reach me, however, and to sign up for our community listserv, because as things are changing and progressing and we're putting COVID hopefully behind us, we'll be making any announcements on our community listserv. So I'll throw that in the chat. Again, my name is Maria Berry, and if you have any questions or concerns, as always, feel free to reach me, and I'll just put that in the chat. Thanks.
Thanks, Maria. Next, since we have Council Member Mary Che here, I thought, Nicholas, you might go next.
Yes, I won't jump ahead too much of the council member, but as always, my name is Nicholas Kramendelson. I'm the council member's Deputy Director of Constituent Services. So please feel free to give me a call, an email, should you ever have any constituent service related questions or want to get in touch with our legislative staff. I will also be sure to drop my contact information in the group chat so everyone has that. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. And then Amir, would you like to go last from the mayor's office? We might have a few other organizations here, but we'll start.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hi, good evening. My name is Amir Guravantab, and I am one half of the Ward 3 Mokers representing our ward. I just have a few vaccine and restriction related updates for tonight. So as of last Monday, as of 2 days ago Monday, 23.4% of DC residents have been vaccinated at least once, and we're increasing that number every day. Just to reiterate, invitations for pre-registration are being sent out Thursdays and Sundays and Tuesdays at 10 a.m. And the pre-registration portal is open to everyone now, anyone in DC. And starting April 19th, all DC residents 16 and up are eligible to receive the vaccine. So big news update. If you haven't registered for the vaccine yet and you want it, please do now to get a spot in line. Besides that, we have some new restrictions being lifted on May 1st. That includes seated live entertainment. That includes indoor and outdoor theaters, which is 25% capacity, and movie theaters at 25% capacity. Live music will be allowed again. Weddings and special events at 25%. School graduation and ceremonies will occur indoor and outdoor. We're getting capacity restrictions later on. We haven't received that guidance just yet. Pools, indoor and outdoor, will open at 50% capacity. Splash pads will open at full capacity. Rec centers indoors at 50%. Libraries open at 50%. Museums, galleries, and exhibits can operate indoors and outdoors with 50%. Non-essential retail can open indoors and outdoors at 50%. And that's about it for restrictions. If there's any questions regarding these, I can take them now. Commissioner Damiano?
Amir, I'm having quite a few constituents reach out about issues receiving the second dose of their COVID vaccine. I know we've spoken about this before, but it's becoming more of a problem. And I've tried reaching out to the Vaccinate DC folks, but I've not really gotten a clear answer. Essentially, a lot of AU students are largely transient and they're moving very often. So I know I'm worried, and the university is worried as well, that some students might receive the first dose of the vaccine in DC in May, but then move back to their home states during the summer and have difficulty completing their vaccination. So we're just wondering, I guess, if you can talk to the right people and get us some further guidance about whether or not we should be telling students planning to move during the summer to pre-register for the vaccine in DC, and just how to move forward. So I'd really appreciate that if you could help us get that information.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of questions about this. There hasn't really been any clear guidance for the second dose. What I can say now is that you don't register for the second dose, at least in DC. You show up to the appointment location, preferably where you had it last time, with your vaccination card saying the date of your vaccination. So if your card said today's date, April 7th, you would show up to a provider. If you got it at Giant, for example, you could show up at Giant and they do list the location. However, people have been asking like if they got it from out of state, and they have been able to just show up to any DC provider with their vaccination card saying that they were vaccinated out of state, but basically saying that my vaccination card says today's date, I have to get my second dose. And while we don't have any clear guidance, I don't think people have been getting turned away from that. And in my experience, getting the second dose has been much simpler. They simply just ask you if you're here for your second dose, they take a look at your card and they send you on your way. However, I'm not sure what other states are doing for their second dose, but I can contact DC Health and try to get more clear guidance. But what we're telling people so far is that if their vaccination card says a certain date, to try to go to a provider and tell them that they need the vaccine on that date.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you could get a clearer guidance, I know that I and the university would really appreciate that, just so we're giving students the correct information. But thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you for that question. Any other questions?
Is a non-COVID question okay?
Yeah.
Sure. So this community has been very concerned about the old Hardy School. And I know that this body had passed a resolution opposing the renewal of the lease there. And we learned just a couple weeks ago that the lease there had been extended. It had been extended back in December, but not made public even to the council until a few weeks ago. And the inquiries I've made are that it all came out of the mayor's office. So can you tell us what happened?
As far as the mayor's office, I don't know if it's specifically referring to the executive office of the mayor. These plans are being done by the agencies within the District of Columbia government. So that includes DGS and DCPS, for example. But I can get into contact with my fellow agencies and talk back to you on that. I can leave my contact information in the chat as well.
Great, that would be appreciated.
Commissioner Ela, I've got a question for Mr. Gur-Ravantab.
Go for it.
I sent the Deputy Mayor of Education and the Chancellor of the DC Public Schools, as well as the Director of the DGS, the Director of General Services, a list of probably 15 detailed questions. Is there any reason why that has not been answered? I sent that on March 11th. Regarding the Hardy School and the GDS site, the Georgetown Day School site, and I haven't received a single response, and that's troubling to me.
Right, I do remember that. And we did address DGS. I sent it to Wayne Gore from DGS, and he did confirm receipt of the email. I'm not sure where it went from there, if he sent it to his director or not. We've had a few issues with DGS's responsiveness. That's why I say I was confused with the fact that it was a mayor's office issue, because we've been trying to contact DGS themselves and try to get answers out of them, and we've been having difficulties with that. So I can send another email to kind of nudge DGS to get another response, because I had figured that they hadn't responded to you privately. I didn't know they hadn't responded at all, because Mr. Gore did acknowledge our email's receipt, and did presumably send it further up the chain. But I can reply to that email again and have Mr. Gore address it again with leadership.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate your efforts that you made to try to get the questions answered. So thank you.
So if there's any more questions, I can take them now.
Any more questions? Nope. Okay, thanks so much.
All right, thank you everyone for your time.
All right, now we're on to commissioner updates. Any updates?
Madam Chairman, I have one. I have a couple. Can you hear me? This is Chuck Galkins. Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
The Transportation Committee is running a little project to try to identify sidewalk hazards. These are cases where the sidewalk is at least an inch or 2 inches separated from the one next to it, and if they're tripping hazards. And we have a number of volunteers going around and recording these, and we're going to deal with Department of Transportation on all of these at one time. And so if anyone else is willing to be a volunteer to help, there are a lot of sidewalks in our neighborhood, and could help by just when you're out for a walk to record these tripping hazards. If you could be in touch with me, and I'll sign you up for a few blocks if you don't mind. So it's 3D01 is my address at anc.dc.gov. Thanks. And the other thing is that on April 1st, the Police Commission, Reform Commission reported, and I've asked the chair to put this on the agenda for next month. Hopefully that will happen, and I hope that people have a chance to read at least the summary of that and can participate in a discussion of it. We'll see if we can put that up on our website so that you can read it. I think police reform is a subject of interest to a lot of us, and the question is whether our neighborhood would like to chime in as the council and the mayor consider these recommendations. So hopefully that will be a subject for next month, and you can read ahead of time. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Elkins. One suggestion that I might have on sidewalks, and I'd like to maybe enlist the help of Christian on this. It's potentially creating a Google Doc or something that's really easy for people to, if we put in a listserv, to be able to add quickly to a cloud-based document of where we've got sidewalk issues, because I think there's some significant ones, and it might be an easier way to manage it versus email. Would that be okay? And I think this question might be for Commissioner Elkins, who might be frozen. I'm not sure.
No, that would be fine.
Okay.
We can accommodate all kinds of technology here to get the right
Awesome.
data in the right place.
All right, great. Thank you. Any other commissioner updates?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I believe Chris Timko is in the meeting, who was invited to speak during institutional updates. He may not have been familiar with the timing of that. This is a short presentation on the revised route of the Bellringer ride.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Shrieky. So my name is Chris Timko. I'm the executive director of Bellringer. We are a bike ride that was recently founded by Georgetown University to raise money for cancer research at Lombardi Comprehensive Cancer Center. Our first ride is taking place on October 23rd, 2021, and we've been hard at work with the Mayor's Special Events Task Group to define a route for the ride. And you can flip to page 4 here. We can just do this very briefly. The ride will leave from Georgetown University at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday, October 23rd. We anticipate 1,500 riders in our first year, and it's a one-way ride, so it doesn't loop. But our plan is to head out the back gates of Georgetown onto Canal Road, and then north on Canal Road to the Chain Bridge, where it turns into Clara Barton Parkway and through your ANC. And so the way this will work as we plan it is that you would see the first riders on Canal Road, where there would be a closure that would be enforced by MPD at 7:32 a.m. And then the last rider would exit the district at 8:55 a.m. And so we obviously, are open to any feedback, any questions you have, as well as, ultimately we're seeking your approval for us to move forward with the district to finalize our plans.
Thanks so much. And we have added to our agenda for official actions a letter.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Any other items that I missed for institutions?
Chairperson Ela, we have the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, I was going to do that under community items, but we could do that now as well, if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'd like me to go now?
Sure thing.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Aaron Mars. I'm the chairperson for the Boy Scouts of America right here in Washington, D.C. And thank you so much for the invitation to appear tonight. I just want to communicate two things to your group very quickly. The first is to celebrate the accomplishments of our youth and volunteer leaders during the year 2020. As everyone knows, it was an exceptionally challenging year, but we still served across the entire city, 1,400 young men and women in every single ward in DC. We did a major service project last year, collecting over 16,000 pounds of food to donate to local food banks, and 24 of our youth achieved the rank of Eagle, the highest rank available in our organization, including one outstanding young woman who joined the inaugural class of female Eagle Scouts, a record first in our organization's history. So I'm incredibly proud of everything that our young men and women accomplished in the past year. The second thing I want to do tonight is thank all of you for your support. Your ANC includes within its boundaries 5 units in our program. We have a Cub Scout pack at St. Patrick's Episcopal Church. We have a Cub pack and Scout troop at Palisades Community Church. And we also have a Cub pack and Scout troop at Metropolitan Memorial Methodist Church. We could not deliver the scouting program without these terrific community partners, and so I'm profoundly grateful for their support. If you have ever helped one of our groups through their fundraising activities or seen them in the community working on service projects, thank you for your support. That's all I have. I'm going to drop my name and email contact in the chat if any of you have questions about the scouting program. Thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.
Hey, Riley. I think I'm out on.
Chairperson Ayla, your computer's freezing.
Yeah, we just want to go to the rest of the commissioners for updates in the meantime.
Sure. I just want to point out that O'Reilly has assisted me in getting the ANC 3D Facebook page up and running. So we'll be using that over the next few months to keep residents updated about current and future commission business. So we just want you to make sure to like that page, which you can find by searching Advisory Neighborhood Commission 3D on Facebook or going to facebook.com/ANC3D. I'll be sure to post that link in the chat right now, but please be sure to also invite your friends and neighbors to like the page as well so that they can get the updates when we send them out.
I'll hop in next. Briefly, at the last meeting, we had a brief presentation about ANC committees that are across the city. And I encourage and would like to reiterate that if you are interested in joining a committee, helping to form additional committees for the ANC in particular, the 3 that we are interested in, I think most, if there is sufficient interest from the community, is a education and youth committee that would focus on issues affecting schools, but also other issues affecting young people. an economic development committee that would focus on issues affecting area businesses, etc. So now I've lost the other one in my mind. But if any of those are of interest to you, please let me know, and you can email me. And we're looking for some active people to join in and assist with this. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben. Can you guys hear me again?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any other commissioner updates before we move on to community concerns?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know, I met with a couple of the surrounding ANCs regarding the development on 4220 Nebraska Avenue, which is the River School's potential development in the area. So we went over some traffic concerns, also, the development itself, which is there's nothing set in stone yet. They're still kind of in the works, but I let everyone know in that group that I'm still kind of trying to feel out what our neighbors are thinking and what 3D is thinking. So if anyone on the call is interested in giving me feedback, I'd appreciate it. And you can email me at ANC3D10. Is that right? 3d10@anc.dc.gov, and I could put that in the chat as well. But there's already, it's right next to the AU Law School. Janney Elementary is right around the corner from there. It's not directly part of our ANC, but it is on the border of our ANC. So thank you.
And Jeremy, I need to connect you with the NPC, NPS community as well. They had reached out to me about the traffic concerns as well. And so I had said that I would connect them with you.
Great. Yeah, because that obviously, like what that school is looking to add is right now, I think on MacArthur, they have 210 students. They are looking to grow this school to 350 students. They said that it would be on a rolling, timing. So like you'd have certain number of kids coming in at different times and certain number of kids leaving at different times. But I really am interested in hearing what the community has to say about this. So yeah, if you just put me in contact with other people that are concerned individuals, I'd be happy to receive that feedback as we're going through this process.
All right, are we ready to move on to community concerns? And we're going to start with Steve Fagan and Suzanne Morel for 4500 block of MacArthur.
Thank you. This is Steve Fagan. I live in the 4500 block. I represent about 30 neighbors in the 4500 block of MacArthur as well as behind. Do I have your permission to put a like 6 or 7 bullet outline? I will not take more than about 4 minutes. Promise.
Yes.
Thank you.
Although I think I should ask Councilmember Che if that's okay, because we're now late for her.
Of course, it's okay.
Thank you. Can you see the screen? Can you guys see it?
It's a white page.
It's a blank page right now.
It's just a white page. Don't you just love technology? Let me try one more time. If not, then I'll just walk through it. I apologize. I think what I'm going to do is just
coming off your 3 to 4 minutes, or
Councilwoman Jay, you are actually one of the main people. I'm so glad that you're on this call. Let me just share with you what's going on. Over the past 2 years, the 4400 block to the 4900 block in MacArthur Boulevard has been experiencing a lot of security problems. The community met with Council Member Che and other council members over the past 2 years. This has been going on for quite a while now. We have been experiencing trespassing, drug distribution, public sexual activities, violence. Just last week, one of the folks who lived in one of the buildings was physically assaulted. So we're talking about real issues. I have talked to, our group has talked to our ANC commissioners, We have talked to DCA, we have talked to DCHA, we have talked to MPD, we have talked to everybody, and we're getting a lot of pushback. This is a serious issue that is not being resolved. What basically has happened now, there are 2 or 3 buildings that the building owners decided to have totally tenant-based voucher folks. So you have 2 adjacent buildings, one with 11, the other with 17 or 18 units that are filled with voucher tenants, which is fine, except what's happened over the past 2 years, that we have noticed an incredible amount of disturbances in the neighborhood, trespassing, violence, drunken fights in my front yard. We call MPD. We've had multiple conversations with Lieutenant Haskis. They know what's going on. In the last 313 days, there have been 237 police and EMS calls. Essentially every other day, EMS, MPD is coming to my block of MacArthur Boulevard where there are disturbances. So what's happening? You have a lot of long-term residents who are moving out of the district, and they're citing their inability basically to live without these regular disturbances. The problem is being exacerbated by a couple of things. One is the voucher folks are not being properly screened for either substance abuse or mental illness issues. If you guys are probably familiar with Housing First, right? Just put a roof over someone's head. Well, that's not quite working out, where we're having a lot of issues with disturbances. The city's not providing mandatory social wraparound services. In fact, DCHA didn't even know they weren't providing any services. The building owners who we talked to are indifferent to it. And you have multiple city organizations, right, responsible for different voucher programs. There's rapid rehousing, there's tenant vouchers. None of them are talking to each other. They can't even tell you how many are in the building. So it's now the neighborhood's responsibility to essentially police disturbances. What's changed in the last 2 years? The council did a couple of things. One is they eliminated the 25% threshold of voucher units in a building. So now you can have a building with 100% of voucher tenants, which would be fine if everybody got along and played by the rules, but that's not what's going on. The other thing, which is absolutely incredible, the city now offers landlords and building owners 175% above market rates. So if you're a building owner, rather than chasing down Georgetown students, you can get 175% of market rates by voucher tenants, then that's what you're going to do. With the city not policing it, with indifferent building owners and managers, it's no wonder why almost every other day we have MPD and EMS response to the street. There are a couple short-term goals. There are some longer-term goals, but quite frankly, there's about 30 or 40 people that have signed an online petition. Councilmember Che, we strongly request a meeting with you, with Councilmember Mendelson, DCHA, and the mayor's office. I don't want to go another 2 years begging for the city to pay attention to this serious problem. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve. I think one thing on this matter that we can do, and I'm not going to ask for Mary Che's office to respond now, but perhaps we can work with Jason, and who's your elected commissioner, and we can start to think through the issues here. But thank you for addressing them the way that you did there.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to include the one-page summary, if I can, in the chat.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You know, I'm happy to meet with you. If you don't mind, if I could just jump in here.
Yes.
I'm happy to meet with you. I've met with you before, and I've also identified for you some of the problems, and I'm entirely sympathetic. We have it. It's not just over there. We have it on Connecticut Avenue. We have it in other parts around the ward, and there are other wards too. There are 2 sources of these vouchers, one federal and one DC. The federal people just have a list and they hand them out. There's nothing, there's no vetting, there's no anything, and they just hand them out. And we have, as far as I'm able to detect, we have no control over that, or at least that's what my understanding is, because they're the federal ones. even on the DC ones, and I've met many times with the head of Human Services, to say you are wrecking established peaceful communities by having and sending people, you know, in large numbers who are not ready really to live on their own. Because as you say, substance abuse and, mental health issues. For example, there was a place over on Connecticut Avenue where the people long-term were, as you say, moving out. And sometimes there's this undercurrent when I complain that, these folks are just racists because many of the voucher recipients are Black or people of color. But I have talked to people who are Black and people of color who live in these units, and they don't like it either. So there are some things we've been able to do, and some things not so much. One of the pieces of legislation that I got through was to say that, and I got money for the, whatever that, I have to think of the name of the office. There are places that won't accept vouchers, even though by law they're obligated to, okay? But I got personnel, budget money for personnel to do these, tester situations where they go there with vouchers to these places to see whether they'll take them or not, and to be able to enforce the law to make sure that they take them. The issue, aside from drug addiction, mental health issues, is dispersal. You can't have a high concentration of people who are all troubled. You're going to have trouble. So I'm happy to meet with you again. I can bring you up to date on some of the things that I've been thinking about. But if it's not characterized quite as intractable, it's close to it, because the administration, the executive branch, is keen on this because, as you say, housing first. They want to be able to say at some point, we have dealt with our chronic population of people experiencing homelessness. I regard them as indifferent to the destruction, to the communities where they are just dumping people without regard for what the consequences are. So you have an ally in me, but so far I've only been able to do so many things. So I'm happy to meet with you anytime you want. Nick can arrange it. I'm happy to meet with you.
Thank you.
And Chairperson Ella, I will certainly, this is Councilman Rayo, I will certainly help mediate and follow up with Steve and Suzanne, who I've spoken with many, many times about this issue. Of course, I always agree with Mary Shea. This is a citywide problem that's complex and requires some coordination with some of the other social services that are offered. But I'm happy to help in any way with Steve and follow up, and perhaps working with JP and others, we could look to a future date for a fuller briefing with some progress on this issue that I know has been lingering for some time.
Community really appreciates that. It's been a tough couple of years for us.
And Chairperson Ela, I suggest that we schedule a meeting in June where we have the various agencies come together, and the neighbors can come together, and the neighbors can share their concerns, and the city can explain what they're doing to alleviate those concerns. And I think that the format that we've used in other major issues, where we take about 45 minutes of our meeting, would be helpful in this situation.
Thank you, JP.
Sounds good. So I've added that to our OneNote meeting agenda for 6/2, and potentially JP and Jason, maybe, I don't know, Ben, if this seems to be something potentially of interest for you, if the 2 or 3 of you can work together to.
I spoke to Commissioner Rao, and I would be enthusiastic to have Commissioner Bergman join. I think this is a multi-faceted problem that isn't just in Ward 3, and maybe having Commissioner Bergman's expertise on this issue can help solve the problem for the neighbors on that stretch of MacArthur.
And excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I meant to say this before. Steve, I have to correct you about something. You say the council lifted the limit on the number of voucher holders permitted in a building. We never had a limit. There are many buildings that have 90% of voucher holders in them. The council has never passed legislation along the lines of what you're talking about. And in fact, I explored the possibility of putting limits on it, and I'll tell you what the complications are with that. But there has never been a council piece of legislation that lifted a previously existing limit.
Okay, may I share the regulatory information with you? Tomorrow, I'll send you the document from the city that specifically addresses that and where to find it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Any other community concerns before we move on to our discussion with Councilmember Che? It does not look like we have additional ones. All right, well, I think the first thing that I'd like to do is, we've got a few people on the phone. Michael, are you laughing? All right, so we have a few people on the phone who have been waiting for a while, as well as Mary Che. And I first would like to take just a moment to recognize Commissioner Galkins for his service as our chairperson for the past 2 years, and as former chairperson Gardner's second in command as well for the years before that. So I wanted to start by just taking a moment to thank you for your time. And we have a few people, including former chairperson Gardner on the phone. Mary.
Lost her.
You froze again.
You know, but I think it's really quite wonderful how the chairperson, when she gets frozen, she's frozen in like a really good position. I've gotten frozen. It's like, it's a good freeze you got there. Of course, it's too lengthy, but
Jeremy, you might have to take over.
Yeah, I'm recognizing that right now. Although it seemed like she had a speech prepared for Commissioner Galkins. That's the only issue. I don't have that. I'm not well aware of the speech going on. Let me pull up the agenda though.
This is Commissioner Galkins. This is a surprise to me, but why don't we move on and we can come back to this if we have time, and go on and let Councilmember Che start, because a lot of people are waiting for that.
well, yes, but you know, before we do that.
Oh, she's back now.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
Sorry, Chuck, too bad. Gonna have to do it in front of the whole neighborhood.
Oh dear.
Man, no, I actually wanted to turn this over to Mr. Gardner, who's going to provide a few words, and then Mary Che.
If you can hear me, thank you very much for having me back to the commission. I feel very much at home. I was asked to make a few remarks about Chuck Galkins. So what I'd like to say is there is a mantra that was true when I chaired the commission that is just as true today. That mantra is simply, we could not do it without Chuck. Chuck, I couldn't have done it without you. And Paige told me today that she couldn't do it without you. So I'm just here to thank you for your tireless efforts on behalf of ANC 3D and your extraordinary commitment of time and leadership. We couldn't do it without you, Chuck.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, and for those who, I'll leave my email in the chat, but if anyone would like to add a note to the art that is coming for Chuck, please let me know. Now that most of us are close to getting vaccinated, we're now at the point where I can pass along some physical things to people and feel safe about it. So we'll be doing that in the coming month. So with that, Mary, I'll turn it over to you. And apologies for the technology issues.
Do I get to say something about Chuck?
Yes, you do.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad, because I'm delighted that he's being honored with a gift that you cannot deliver, but nevertheless, he'll receive at some point. Chuck, I have always been impressed with your service. You're a dedicated community member. Your service on the ANC has been exemplary. And one of the things that I particularly liked about you, in addition to how thoughtful you are, it's always seemed to me that whatever your views are about something, you always ensure that the community members are able to share their views. And I think that's a wonderful characteristic. And you've displayed that, year over year. And you've worked so well with the Zoning Commission, Move DC, with the Committee on Transportation and the Environment, which I chair. So I have a little connection with your ability to work, with these other entities. And you've just been a great gift to your ANC, but also obviously to Ward 3 generally and the district. So I am very thankful for your service. People may not realize it, and it's not just something that we say. Council members cannot do their job without responsible ANC commissioners. And it's always, very satisfying to be able to work together with someone like you. So I'm glad they're honoring you, and I hope you get the item before too long.
Well, thank you all. This is a big surprise to me, but it's very much appreciated, and thank you, Mary, for that.
Okay.
That was the unusual surprise resolution that is coming, and we'll do that after Mary speaks. So with that, Chuck, I will turn it over to you to introduce our esteemed guest for the evening.
Well, this is a person who really doesn't need much of an introduction, so I will spare everyone. But Mary Che has been our council member for some good time, and I think all of us know her. She does chair the Transportation and Environment Committee, but in addition to that, which is not an easy task, she really has participated very actively across all the issues that the council deals with. So that means that we see her name in the paper quite often as she takes a leadership role. So with that, I think we'd like to give you plenty of time here to tell us what is on your mind and what you've been doing, and then give people a chance to ask you some questions. So Mary, why don't you take it from there?
Thank you, Chuck. And thank you all for inviting me tonight. There are a number of issues that everybody seems to be concerned with, and on top of that list would, of course, be the issues about COVID and both what we're doing, for the citizenry and how we're going to come out of COVID. I mean, I'm just happy to be able to talk about that in that way, come out of COVID. Amir talked about some of the changes the mayor has announced. As you know, we have been operating for about a year with the authority for the mayor to act pretty much unilaterally in this public health emergency. Now, the council has gotten in and we've passed emergency legislation on various things, whether it be to freeze evictions or to take care of things involving people who are behind in their utility payments and a whole variety of things. But the mayor is doing the day-to-day operations. And so it's her announcements that even we have to watch closely to see what's permissible. And pretty much the mayor has been guided, as far as I can see, by the CDC recommendations and also the health department recommendations. And now, and she hasn't been reckless at all. In fact, I think she's been cautious, and I think that's what she had to be, particularly at the beginning, in terms of how we respond to this. But we have opened up a little bit more. And Amir mentioned something, and I want you all to know this if you don't know it already. and to talk to your constituents. The registration system has opened up or will open up to everybody on, I think, April 19th. Anybody 16 years of age or older. So everybody can go on the health department vaccine site and register. However, and do that, please do that, because you set yourself up for getting an appointment. It doesn't mean you're going to get an appointment quickly necessarily, because there will still be these limitations on who gets called first. And the limitations still, to some extent, affect Ward 3 directly, because certain zip codes are being favored. Now, I know some people were not particularly happy about that, but the idea is to find those areas in the district, which does not pretty much include Ward 3, but those areas in the district where the incidence of COVID are high, where the illness is most serious, and where there are more deaths, and where at the same time vaccination is lower. So it's an attempt to respond to the problem. But of course, if you live in a zip code that may be a little disfavored, you're not happy about that. But there is a justification for it, and I think it holds up. The mayor also announced that they're going to stand up another big vaccination site at Arena Stage. We already have it at Providence. We already have it at the Convention Center, the Sports and Entertainment Arena. But again, you still have to register. You still have to get your appointment through the DC Health vaccination portal. We are doing better in terms of vaccination, but there have been problems. There have been problems both in administration, and there have been problems in the number of doses that are coming to our own residents. Part of that problem, a significant part of that problem, is that there are three buckets, okay? The federal government and what they give out, special assignments to for example, health entities, and then, that which is run through the DC Health Department. Even with the DC Health Department though, which is, we think it's supposed to be for us, but it's not entirely for us, because we have opened it up to essential workers, many of whom do not live in the District of Columbia. Firefighters, police officers, grocery store workers. There are a lot of people who are public facing and who we want to have vaccinated, not just for themselves, because yes, of course we want to protect them, but also for the residents of the District of Columbia. So as a consequence of these different buckets, and then, the preferences in terms of zip codes, and then the preferences in terms of, for example, essential workers, even those who don't live in the District of Columbia, we have been, I think, perhaps slower than other places to get, and there have been management problems. There's no question about that. We have been slower to get vaccines out. Now, what we're told by the executive, we've been having weekly phone conversations, all the council members with it used to be called the mayor council call, but the mayor dropped out a long time ago, and then others dropped out. So it's like it's the council city administrator call or something like that. But we get our questions answered, and what they've been saying as members, continually press, for a better system. We're the ones who pressed for the system of registration. I don't know if you remember, prior to that, you had to call up and stay by the computer and call up and call, I refer to it as the Hunger Games. People would be fighting to try to get a spot. Now, at least you can register and you'll be notified when you can get an appointment. At least there's that. And in fact, I sent them, long ago what they were doing in New Mexico that replicates that. So things have been getting better. But what we're told, we should tell our constituents, just be patient, because the problem will resolve when we get many, many, many more vaccines. And that's expected in the next number of weeks. We should be seeing lots more vaccines. So we're all keeping our fingers crossed that really takes care of things. Now, I also wanted to talk about something, and please don't fall asleep and start snoring, but it's the budget. The budget is the most important thing that the council has its hands on. We have a $16.5 billion budget, but it's the game plan, if you will, for everything else that we do, you know, where money's allocated and so on. Now the mayor, if you don't know this, I'll just add it briefly, and if you do know it, bear with me. What happens is the mayor works on a budget and she prepares the whole budget, all the agencies, everything like that, and then drops it on the council. But the council has the last word about how the money is to be spent. However, except for certain monies that have to be spent because of federal guidelines, et cetera, to get the money. However, since the council is not much interested in raising taxes, there's a sneaky way of getting more money through fees. That's true. You always have to watch out for that. But since we're not very much interested in that, if the council wants to put money over here and the mayor hasn't, we don't think, put enough or put any, we have to find it from somebody else. We have to rob Peter to pay Paul. That's how it works. And that's a difficult thing because you have 13 council members with 13, you know, somewhat different agendas. And then, you know, if I want to take money from somebody else's committee, I'm going to get an earful about it. But the next, the mayor ordinarily would have dropped the budget already at the end of March. And then we go into our budget hearings. Each of the respective committees has their agencies come in and we talk about the budget and why is it this, and et cetera. And we try to find, you know, little nooks and crannies where they may have hidden a little bit of money in so that we can pull it and give it to someone else or something else. That hasn't happened because the mayor asked for a delay until April because we're getting CARES money, federal money that we can integrate in the budget. Some of it not entirely, 50% of it could be held back, you know, for the next budget year, but it will have a material effect on what that budget looks like. And we want to see how that works out because otherwise what you have is a budget that you'll approve and then we'll have to have a supplemental budget. And there are complications with that limit the council's role. So we said, okay, take until April. The mayor has just come back and asked us, and we just decided yesterday, I think today's Wednesday, right? So we just decided yesterday that she can have until May. That's also problematic for the council because it really squeezes the time that we have to make the decisions that we want to make with respect to allocations. But we agreed because until the Treasury Department gives guidance, specific guidance, instead of like, okay, here's a couple $1 billion, they'll say how we can spend it and how we can't spend it and when we can spend it. So we're waiting for that, but that's really important for all of us because the money will be vital in providing services that the pandemic has really brought to the fore that we're in need of. And it may be odd, maybe you read this somewhere, that at the end of this last budget year, we had, despite the pandemic, we had a $500 million surplus. But we did dip into some of our reserve accounts. And so that's going to have to be made up. We're going to have to do more for people who are still unemployed. We're going to have to do more for people who need help with their rent or with their food and with the basics. We're going to have to, I think, put in a lot of money, which the council is keen to see, on schools, because there's been all of this learning loss with this virtual teaching and emotional and social impairments that have been caused to kids. I was over at Oyster, for example, when some of the kids first came back, and I was talking to the principal over there, and she said, you should have seen how happy these children were just to see these other children and just to be in a school. We're going to have to put a lot of money into the opening up of term 4 in April. We're going to have to put a lot of money into summer catch-up programs, and we're going to have to put a lot of money as we go along to bring people, the learning loss that we've had, and it does vary according to parts of the city. In low income areas, the learning loss has been particularly severe. So the budget, I need you to keep your eyes open, okay? And to keep your eyes open to see how this money is being spent, because we may have certain priorities that you share, and and I need you to communicate with me, because at some point we are going to vote on the budget. We are going to decide what's what. Now, we talked before about the issue about the voucher residents. We've had an eviction ban since the pandemic started. You couldn't evict people. But what has happened, and I've heard it from people, tenants and building managers, lots of people. And it's not just the voucher residents, it could be others, but they are implicated in this. In that there have been violent encounters in buildings. Somebody punches the janitor in the face, or there's domestic violence, whatever it is. And it's not just here in Ward 3, because there was a tenant group that set up a meeting with me, and I heard from residents in Ward 7 and in other wards around the district. But because of this ban on evictions, they have to live, with these folks who are engaging in some cases, violent behavior. The council just passed something to give us, a bit of a break. And it's to say that for crimes and violence and things like that, you can now, that's going to be an exception to the evictions ban. So there's that. I don't know if any of you have heard this from your constituents, in buildings that you're dealing with, but there's in at least that little sliver area, help is on the way. Okay. And that's I think pretty important, because there have been firearms and all sorts of different things. Okay, another thing that I know is kind of roiling the community, and it came up in some of the questions to Amir, and that's our schools. Okay, and not just the schools about reopening, although that is a big issue. The schools with respect to the Foxhall School and also the GDS site. And, the Old Hardy and lab and all of that. Okay, I'll tell you what I know, and I'll tell you what I've tried to do. We have significant overcrowding in all Ward 3 schools. Now, maybe it's a great problem to have because people want to go to Ward 3 schools, public schools, but it's a big problem. And so we've been thinking about lots of different ways to deal with it. There are various education groups that have been working on this, and Ruth Wattenberg, on the Board of Ed, a lot of people are putting their minds together on these things. But one of the things I wanted to do, again, which shows you the importance of budget, I got money in the budget to add additions to Key and Stoddard to help deal with their overcrowding problem. Okay, that wasn't an easy thing to do because you're fighting with your colleagues. They want money for this and they want money for that. And then sort of suddenly the Georgetown Day property came up, and I had to search around and get my colleagues not to, veto it for $48 million to buy that property, because we don't have property for schools like some other places. And it's hard to find places that are suitable for schools. That's already a school. As you know, it was Georgetown Day lower and middle school for many years. Okay, so now I'm thinking, okay, we have the additions, Key and Stoddard. We have to deal with some of the other schools as well. Wilson and Alice Deal. But maybe we could use the Georgetown Day site for a middle school or high school or something. Not knowing, but taking advantage of the fact that it was available. However, a little wrench was thrown into things in terms of the additions on Stoddard and Key by the mayor taking the money for that and offering up instead this elementary school to be put right next to the Old Hardy, the lab annex, I guess we can call it. Because the mayor very much wanted, and I know Amir said, as Amir should say, well, I'll check into it and see what I find out. The mayor very much wanted to protect lab in being able to stay there, because lab is a wonderful school. I have no complaints about lab, but I had always thought that we could use that as an early child learning center and take some of the pressure off some of the other schools, and have our pre-K 3 and 4 and have that, not that my vision was the only one, but okay. So now the money is taken for the additions and it's put toward this new school, which there are issues about how shall that school be used, how many children should go there, what should happen to the GDS site. So I will just tell you that in January, DCPS convened a working group of principals, parents, teachers, community members to talk at a very high level about, how these should be deployed, particularly the Georgetown Day School. And I've already gone to some meetings where things have been discussed. And I want to make clear that as far as I know, but things do happen, under cover of darkness, the lease was entered into with Lab on Christmas Eve, and no one else knew about it. I'm having our legal counsel look into it to see whether it is actually legitimate. I don't know what the outcome will be. And even if it is found to be somewhat sketchy, I don't know that necessarily we'll be able to rescind it. But in any case, there is this working group, and there's also going to be a survey. And I want to alert you to this as well if you don't know about it. DCPS later this month is going to be doing a survey to get feedback on these projects. Questions about, boundary lines, feeder patterns, what schools should be, for in particular Georgetown Day, should be middle school, should be high school. And when this survey comes out, it's not limited to parents of children in the schools, it's to the community, because everybody will be affected. So when that comes out, I would hope that you would encourage everybody to express themselves. Not that the decisions that are going to be made are going to be based on a show of hands per se, but I think it could influence some of the outcomes, or at least address concerns that people have. I attended a meeting with the FCCA last Wednesday to hear directly from some community members. And one of the things that they were worried about in particular is how will the Foxhall School affect the rec center? That's not clear yet. I think there will be some effect. I think it'll affect the outdoor space. I don't see how. I'm not an architect or anything, but I don't see how the configuration could not affect it. I also heard concerns about what is this going to do to traffic in the area, with respect to MacArthur Boulevard, but also Foxhall. A lot of these things are yet to be decided. What I may be able to do, because DDOT doesn't do traffic studies until a project is developed and there's a scheme that they're going to follow. But I may be able, and I'm going to try to get money in the budget for, I can't call it a traffic study, that's a technical term, but a traffic evaluation or whatever we want to call it, to take a couple of hypotheticals and see potentially what the increase in traffic, what the effect on parking and other things like that may be under possible projections. In any case, and there are concerns about how many students should attend. The Foxhall School can handle, I think, up to 550. That's up to. Lab has about 100. The old Georgetown Day site can hold up to 700. They were capped at 500 something by virtue of a zoning order. But DCPS has rights to have up to 700 students there. What effect will that have? And it depends on what level of school is there. People were saying, well, we'll worry about kids driving, if it's high school or something like that. There are a lot of reasons why that may not be a very important consideration, but I won't go into the variables there. But the point about all this is final decisions haven't been made, except that it looks like we're stuck with proceeding with an elementary school adjacent to the lab school, the annex part, there on Foxhall. The additions on Stoddard and Key have been removed, and we have to figure out what to do with the Georgetown Day site. I think those are the most prominent issues right now. And, I don't want to go on and on, though I sometimes have a tendency to do that because I like talking to people about what's going on. But I guess I'll stop there and ask everybody if they have particular questions that they want to put to me. I don't know if Nick, I don't know if I'm in charge or who's in charge of recognizing people who want to ask questions. Is it you, Chuck? Is it you, Eli? Are you gonna? I'm not in charge here, so I think I'll leave it to whomever.
Let me ask the chair whether she will be doing this or not.
Because if you leave it up to me, I'll never call on Nick. I mean, I just won't.
No. I don't hear the chair.
Chair might be frozen again.
Okay, so
yeah, I'm having some challenges, but hopefully you can hear me. And I could certainly hear you, Mary. Thank you so much for your discussion. And Nick, if you want to start off with your first question, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't blame you, council member. I wouldn't call on me either. I have two questions, if I may. One is in the lease of the old Hardy building, there is language about the lab school being able to negotiate use of the playground, parking lot, and fields.
That's correct.
At the Hardy Rec Center site. And that is kind of disturbing, that they're actually going to get more than what they have now.
Well, it's disturbing on a number of levels because when the Foxhall school idea was percolating over there in the executive branch, one of the things that was being floated, and you never know what the anchor to these rumors are, but still, was that, okay, if there's and I don't know how they would do it exactly, but they were going to use that parking area, which is a relatively small area, but they were going to use that as the principal footprint for the additional school, which would make a big difference. There might be some incursion, into the play space of the rec center. But if that were true, then none of the other play space would have been affected. But that's not, you're exactly right. There's part of this that guarantees, I forget how many spaces for lab school. And on top of those spaces, whatever it is, 15 or 17. Nick, do you know if you do know, you can pipe up? Do you know?
I don't know. I just saw the language that it was to be negotiated down the road.
No, I mean, my Nick.
Oh.
Not off the top of my head. I'm looking into that now.
Okay, whatever. Let's say it's 15, 17. You're not my Nick. So it's the other Nick. And then 3 spaces for a bus. So they're going to occupy that area. You know what it looks like behind there next to the rec center. Apparently that's what they're going to get out of it as well. I'm deeply frustrated by the turn that this has taken, and it's going to be hard to pull it back. The best thing I think we can do now, because as I said, I don't know what the general counsel is going to say about the lease. If you have long-term leases, you're supposed to bring them to the council and get approval. One of the ways I was able to hold this whole thing at bay prior to this is because if they came to what we call surplus, it's a surplusing of property. You may know this, not just when you sell it or give it away, but also when you have a long-term lease, okay? You have to go to the council and get approval. Now, since it's in Ward 3, my colleagues were willing to defer to me about my opinion about this. But what I understand is, and the reason why it may have some legal aspect, they may have made it a day short of what would have made it something that had to go to council, in which case we don't get to say. So here's the bottom line. We may be stuck with this. So we have to make sure that it works best for our community. It works best for the larger community, but also for the students and the allocation, the boundary lines. There's a lot of concern, for example, with key parents about what the boundary lines will be. Are we going to be breaking up, a kind of a cohesive community by drawing different boundary lines, because kids hang out with the kids they go to school with, right? Anyway, that's why it's important to participate in the survey. It's important to, stay on top of things and express your view about what's going on, so that if this is what we've been given, if this is what we have to make sure as best we can, and there may not be a lot of consensus on every point anyway, but as best we can, that it works for our community. So I don't know what to tell you beyond that at this moment.
Right, and so my second question is just sort of a plea that if we're going to build a school there, to really push to do it right. And I've been on the community working group, and what we're hearing from the facilities people is that they're in the midst of spending $5 million on a park renovation, and they don't want to undo any of that work. And I understand that inclination, but I think that that's wrong. A school is going to last 100 years plus, and if you're going to do it right, and don't do a half-baked job just because you just spent a few $100,000 on a dog park or something, and you do a half-baked job on a $50 million school as a result because you feel that that's untouchable. And I'd like to push for a holistic review of the site to say, can we have the best possible co-located school and rec center, and really make no assumptions about what is untouchable.
What is your working group? What's the, forgive me for being colloquial here, but what's the vibe over there?
I would say there's definitely a lot of excitement about new schools. I mean, people who are up on education, on public education, are really aware of the challenges of crowding, and the demographic projections of, they're so staggering as to be almost unbelievable, about thousands and thousands of new students in a very short time, the next 7 years west of Rock Creek. And so in general, people are excited about new schools. Both of these sites present challenges, and they're certainly not perfect sites. There are no perfect sites. This is what we have in terms of sites for new schools. And people wish they were more centrally located, and people wish their boundaries didn't have to change, but that's kind of the reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, wait, I'm not in charge here.
Paige, are you handling the questions?
I am certainly trying to, and I'm sorry, my internet is very unstable right now. I can't see anyone else with their hands raised.
Chairperson, it's really important that in a timely manner, you pay your internet bill.
That is so true. Xfinity is on their way to the house tomorrow. So can you please come today? It's very important.
Oh, really? You're coming over? You have an issue over there?
Yeah, it seems like it's beyond what I can fix myself, or they can fix virtually. So yes, someone will be at our house tomorrow. But with that, I can't see any other hands raised, but I'm sort of shocked. Oh, Derry, yes.
Good evening, Ms. Che, and thank you for joining us.
Sure.
I'm Derry Allen. I co-chair, along with the unparalleled Chuck Galkins, the ANC 3D Transportation Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And we know, as you were talking about earlier, that transportation is one of your areas of interest, and many people here share that interest too. And I just want to briefly describe the focus of our group and see if there are additional ways that we might work together with you. The ANC formed our committee last year to assist them. We've got 18 people on this group, including 3 ANC members, and quite a few of them are on this call this evening. It's a remarkable group in terms of expertise and energy and collaboration. We've been working on several issues that are important not only to this area, but also to the city. We've discussed long-range transportation plans with DDOT, drafted detailed comments on Move DC 2021, which the ANC provided to the to DDOT and also to you. We've been working with DDOT on priorities for expansion of bicycle paths affecting our area. And presently we're working with DDOT on details of a proposed bike path on New Mexico, Tunlaw and 37th Street. We're working with the police on specific intersections with safety issues. We're working with DDOT on priorities for sidewalk construction and, as you heard, sidewalk repairs. We're also concerned that too often that pedestrians rank low in transportation priorities as it turns out in the budget. And finally, our co-chair, Mr. Elkins, testified before your council roundtable on post-pandemic transportation issues and at the council's DDOT oversight hearing. So in short, we support your focus on transportation. And if you see additional ways that we might work together to the benefit not only of our area, but also to the city, we'd very much appreciate if you could share those either now or in the future when they might occur to you later. So thank you.
Well, Derry, that's very good to know. And a lot of times when we have ideas, that push the envelope a little bit, I can't tell you how helpful it is when we have hearings and people come in from the community and they offer support. So yes, we'll exploit you as much as we can. By the way, Nick, make a note of that, please. Okay. Especially, I think there's going to be a pushback on those bike lanes on Tunlaw, for example. So.
Yes, well, there's a little bit later in this meeting, there'll be a discussion of a town hall meeting that will be held shortly on that subject to get more input from residents.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And we do look forward to working further with you.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Derry. And Mary, sure. Derry was very instrumental in helping us with Dale Carlia and creating some cohesion within the Spring Valley community. So can't thank Derry enough. Jack, would you like to go next?
Okay, I'm on.
Yeah, I've asked to
I got Mary, you had a hearing or a town hall a week or two ago on the question of streetlights, and the DDOT has an RFP, a draft RFP that the council is reviewing on that, and I gather you heard testimony from several environmental groups on that, and I gather that DDOT has made some improvements in the RFP that they were circulating a couple of years ago, in the sense that they've reduced the Kelvin rating of the streetlights that they're proposing so that they have less blue light wavelength. But there's a lot of people who think that they could do more in that direction, go down from the 3000 Kelvin and 2700 Kelvin range that they've talked about to more like 2200 to 2700 Kelvin. And there are some other issues involving the overall brightness of the lights, where it's not clear that they've made any changes from what they proposed before. And then finally, the issue of shielding of the lights, or using so-called full cutoff lights to direct more of the light down and less of the light up into the sky and horizontally into people's windows. So I was wondering what your reaction was to the town hall that you had, and what your view is on whether DDOT can make further improvements in the RFP.
Well, the hearing itself was aimed at this issue about whether they could use this P3 approach, you know, public-private partnership, instead of a conventional contractual approach. And it's not even technically a real public-private partnership. It is instead a long-term contract where one contractor will be responsible for designing, putting in, building, repairing, and monitoring the whole system over a period of 15 years. With the idea being that when one person is responsible, instead of what we have now, which is like different groups, somebody repairs, somebody this, that, that they will they will be married to the project in such a way that it will be to their advantage to make sure their lights are working and that repairs are done in a timely, you know, rather rapid manner, and that they use the kind of equipment that will last, and use you know, cutting edge technology. So it was supposed to be about that. I had been concerned about the length of the contract and to some extent some of the environmental issues, but it was more about the contractual approach. And DDOT wasn't giving me the information that I wanted. I wanted side-by-side comparisons. What if you stayed with the conventional contract? What if you use this, we'll call it a P3, but whatever. And, you know, tell me, you keep saying we're going to save money. Show me, give me data. And they kept saying, well, it's proprietary. I said, yeah, but you can give it to me in effect under seal if you want. I'm not going to share it with competitors or anything like that. So finally, the night before I would have had to file a disapproval resolution, I told them I am going to file a disapproval resolution. I have 2 other council members, you need 3. If you don't give me this, so they gave it to me. So my staff and I, for hours that evening, we went over the details, and I was satisfied that yes, this will be a favorable contractual arrangement for the district. I had to be satisfied on that. It's very difficult for me, you know, as you might in the same position. You want to do the right thing, but you don't feel like necessarily you always know what that is. You may lack information, or people might not be telling you the right story. In any event, I came to a place where I decided, okay, let them go forward with the RFP. So there's another factor here. We have promised people who bid on this that if we cancel it or whatever, just by virtue of their putting together a proposal, they will be entitled to there's some label for it, but it's kind of like a consolation prize money. So we're already going to be out certain money, up to potentially even $1.5 million, just because we might have disappointed contractors. The flip side of that, and I'm sorry if I'm getting in the weeds, I don't mean to do this, but the flip side of that is all of the technical stuff that they give us, we then own. So even if we don't use them, we can use all of the stuff that they have put together, which costs a lot of money with all these experts, et cetera. So it's kind of like a trade-off. But in any case, I had finally landed on saying, all right, let the RFP go forward. We may be on the you know, chopping block in a sense for this consolation payments, but let it go forward. But that doesn't mean that the contract itself is approved, okay? The contract has to come back to us. And it gets a little tricky in terms of how the council can handle contracts. If we don't like it, we can't go in and say, oh, provision 2X, we want that to be changed and put in our own numbers. We can't do that. If we don't like it enough, we can say we don't approve of it. Goes back to them, they have to fix it up. We'll tell them what is bothering us and they could resubmit, but we can't amend it in that particular way. So that's still out there. Now, about the environmental issues, the DDOT director before Meridian, who was a great DDOT director, and he's gone over to the Biden administration, and it's killing me because he was terrific as a DDOT director. But I'm happy for him. But the DDOT director before him was completely, indifferent. I don't want to be too harsh, but he was pretty indifferent to the community's concern about the brightness, the heat, all the aspects of the lighting contract, and it was like, suck it up, basically, it was the message. But when Meridian came on, I said, Jeff, these people have good points that they want to make. There are environmental issues here that have to be addressed. So what he did, he took the people who were some of the leaders of this effort to try to get these environmental improvements and put them on a working group. And they did not object. They didn't come in, even though it was about the contractual structure of the deal. They didn't come in. Dolores Bushong, do you know her? She was one of the leaders, for example. They didn't come in to complain because they got pretty much everything that they want with Jeff Meridian. Most of the lights will be 2,700. Some will be 3,000. Those are for the major thoroughfares. And if they're not 3,000, you're going to have to change the brightness because of the ability to see on these major thoroughfares. There's also an ability to turn down lights, okay? But most of them will be 2,700, which most people are willing to say that's okay. But even those, in certain circumstances, can be turned down. The technology exists for that. So if and when we get a bidder that is acceptable to the government, and they're willing to enter into a contract, and a contract comes over to us, it may be that there would be some further objections on the environmental level that may be sufficiently serious that we say this contract, we're not going to approve this contract. I don't know. We have to wait and see what comes back. But there was great progress made under Director Meridian, and it's undeniable that that's the case. Okay.
And
I tell you more than you wanted to hear.
Well, I just wanted to add one other question. Are there criteria in the RFP for how bids by different offerers will be evaluated? And do those criteria include any preference for more environmentally protective designs?
Well, when you started talking about, shielding, there's some things where we're stuck. Places where we're stuck are these particular globe lights or something like that, the federal city council or whatever, the federal something or other, they control that, and they won't let us change those lights, okay? There is more shielding that will go on those lights, and there will be shielding on other lights, but what I anticipate, I say we, what the Department of Transportation will identify are the number of lights, the ranges of the lighting, the characteristics in general. I don't know how, I can't say because I just don't know how detailed they will be when they submit this request for proposals.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks,
Are
Jeff.
we
for your
losing
question.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
May I ask a follow-up on that topic?
Sure. Who's talking?
Thanks. That's Michael Streaky. Hi,
where
council
are you?
member.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
There so I'm hard to miss. I wanted to see if I understood something that I thought you said about the contract. Is the nature of the contract going to be geared towards having, one provider, so to speak, govern the maintenance and installation of streetlights in sort of a horizontal fashion? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, one entity.
Okay.
Yes.
So
in Paris, they did this in Paris. They did this in some other places. Most times you use a public-private partnership when you don't have money to finance your operation. That's not our situation. That's why it's not truly a P3. We're doing it because we want to keep saying we, it's not we. The government, the Department of Transportation wants to consolidate all of the aspects of the lighting program. They think they'll have greater efficiencies, greater responsiveness, and will save money.
Okay, so in a couple of times when you've spoken to the ANC and at a few other public meetings, one of the problems you've had with DDOT over the years, I'm just thinking about this, has been with how they deal with Fort Myer construction, and that they seem to, continually deliver subpar service, but they're retained and used over and over again, and there doesn't seem to be sufficient competition to, push them to do better. Do you have any concerns along those lines on this issue?
Let me say something about Fort Myer construction. I've been concerned about Fort Myer construction for years, and because of the pseudo monopoly that they have. Part of the issue with Fort Myer construction is it is, the big player here, plus it's also designated as a CBE. And CBEs get preference in points for contracts. So not only can they get economies of scale because they're big, but they also get extra points when they're bidding for contracts because they're a CBE, a certified business enterprise. So that's part of the problem. And yet you're quite right. The DDOT hasn't done a good enough job supervising all of the work that they do. I can't tell you how many times we've had sidewalks that a month later have pock marks in them or they're falling apart. And so, we can get them to go back, but we have to monitor that very closely. So again, thank you, Director Marudian. I said, what can we do about this? And one of the things that he did, I don't know whether it's continuing now, I'm going to have to find out about it when we have our budget hearings. He said, look, I think I can get us some more competition by taking some of these contracts and breaking them up and letting the little guys, so to speak, get in on it. The reason why it doesn't necessarily carry over to this lighting contract, however, is we're going in saying to this company, and there are also a lot of things where we can ding them if they don't do this and if they don't do that and they don't do the other thing. Of course, if we don't have enforcement, we're all in trouble, but we're already setting the stage with them to do all of that work, and the monitoring will be of them. Fort Myer construction evolved into this behemoth that it is. And it was never something that we decided, okay, we want to consolidate all the asphalt production and this, I don't know what, like with roads in Fort Myer and make them responsible for the whole thing in the same way that we're doing now. It was something that evolved, and they by virtue of their size and their CBE status, kind of took over the territory. So the analogy actually doesn't work, I don't think.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks so much. We have another question coming in from Judah.
But we can't
see if I can unmute you.
Where's Judah? I don't see Judah.
The whole screen moved around. Here we go. Unmute.
Judah, you're not using your video, and I suspect that you're in your pajamas. Is that correct?
Let's see. I am asking to unmute. Riley, I don't know if you can help me with this.
It's unmuted already, but I don't hear him.
All right. Okay, well, we will move on. I see one more hand raised, and I think I'll give it another minute for those who do want to raise their hands, and then we need to move on with this meeting and also let Mary move on with her night. So, Andrew, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'll try to be really quick. So I just wanted to sort of get your sense, Mary, of the feasibility of sort of getting ahead of some of the transportation issues that these two new schools are likely to create by, one, developing better transit in this part of the world. We currently have one bus, D6, which, once probably is not going to be sufficient to bring all children in. And then the second kind of question is related to sort of the trail infrastructure. We have the Palisades Trolley Trail, which could be a wonderful way by which children could travel from Georgetown, from the Palisades to these two new schools, very close to them, but of course currently is essentially, I mean, I don't want to say wasteland, but it's not obviously serving its full potential in terms of a mode for transit. So I'm just wondering, I think I raised to you just with reference to Canal Road, this issue about the Foundry Branch Trolley Trail, the pending demolition of that, whether we could get a stay of execution potentially for that from the Park Service to then maybe look again at this Palisades Trolley Trail now that there is this greater demand for it. Is there anything that we can do as a community? I mean, how can we as a community best support these efforts? And is there much potential there? Can we hope in the coming years to have better transit, better trail facilities, better ways to travel throughout the neighborhood and beyond without cars? Thanks.
You're welcome. I think that we need better transit everywhere. And we have a real opportunity, not just because these schools are coming here, but because of the pandemic. Some positive things have come out of it. People who hadn't biked since they were kids, bike stores were telling me they were out of bikes because people were buying bikes. And so if people have safe places to ride, and that, a trolley trail would be a safe place to ride because you're not competing with cars, more people will ride. And if we've already instituted teaching kids in the second grade how to ride a bike in case they hadn't learned it at home. What we want to do is we want to build on the alternative transit that people have embraced during the pandemic. You've just moved again. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Moving squares. It's really, in any case, but yes, there is potential there, and it's something that really, we need to pursue in a renewed way. Okay, there was some issue about where the trail would go, how far it would go, etc. And then there were initiatives that got stalled for reasons I'm never quite clear about. You may be familiar with. I had this idea, and it's years old. And by the way, it took 6 years or more to get that light on Canal over by the entering in the parking area to get on the trail over there. But in any case, because the Park Service was involved, good luck when you have that happen. But I had this idea that the sidewalk along Arizona should continue and go up over the trestle bridge and connect with the bike trail. That would be fantastic. And then as part of that, there was going to be, and there probably will be, a new bridge over Arizona. And then we could have that trail that carries up MacArthur. These things happen. I forget the man's name, but he was the project manager, and he left DDOT, and then it just kind of died. So yes, there are opportunities here, and we have to seize them to the extent that we can. I think the money is there. I think that we need DDOT to, embrace these projects and make them a higher priority. Now, I can't just dump on them because the truth of the matter is there are projects all around the district. They're going to do that Thomas Circle, where all those roads come together, New York Avenue and everything. And I've asked them every year to make a list of the most dangerous intersections and to come up with plans, immediate, short-term, and long-term, about how to make them not dangerous intersections. So, and I just mentioned those as two examples. They have a lot on their plate, but nevertheless, these projects are there and they can be done. It's not for want of money. That's where the council comes in. So yes, I agree with you, but we have work to do to get them back on target.
Thank you.
This has generated more meetings.
It certainly has. Yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges over this one right now. So I guess moving on, I think we've got two last questions and then one in the chat, which I'll read at the end. Christian, do you want to go next?
Sure. Good evening, council member. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm interested in the ANC redistricting process that's going to be taking place later this summer or early this fall. I've already spoken to Nick Kramendelson about this, but I'd like to encourage you to consider appointing an American University student to the Ward 3 ANC redistricting committee that you're going to be assembling sometime in the future. As you may know, in the past, the voting power of AU students has been intentionally diluted by bad actors in the community. And the seat I currently hold is heavily gerrymandered because of this. So that's an issue that I know the commission would like to resolve in the future and that we addressed in a resolution that we CC'd you on last month. So I'm aware that the Census Bureau data is currently very delayed, but I'm just wondering if you can provide us with any updates about what the redistricting process will look like and when we can expect it to take place.
Well, I participated in one, so to the extent that that is an example of what might happen in the future, when they come out with the numbers, then we're going to see each ward and then each ANC SMD. We have to comply with one person, one vote. That's the baseline. There's a 5% above and a 5% below latitude that you're given, but we have to see how the numbers come out. Now, last time, Ward 3 had an opportunity to add some, and I took us right up to the ceiling because in past years, we've lost some. And even though it was years ago and I had nothing to do with it, there are people who are still feeling aggrieved over in Chevy Chase that they were put in Ward 4 because they feel like they're not Ward 4. And then there were people down by Calvert. It used to be until the last one that you'd go down Connecticut Avenue to the zoo. At the zoo, the rest of Connecticut Avenue on that side to Calvert was Ward 1. The other side to Calvert was Ward 3. Well, the people who were then relegated to Ward 1, I was able to bring them back, you know, because you want it to be contiguous and coherent. You don't want like to take a couple of households here and a couple of households there. So I could manage that. I don't know what the numbers will look like, but there will be a lot of desire, I think, if we can add people, to have people who were previously in Ward 3 who feel, I'm telling you, it's as if it happened yesterday for them, some of these folks, they want to be in Ward 3. So that'll be uppermost on my mind. Now, what we did last time is, and I think the chairman may have already appointed a subcommittee on, you know, redistricting. What we did last time is that each ward council member was able to pick a group or do whatever, maybe do it on his or her own. I don't know if that was even possible. And so I picked a group that I thought was representative. And if we go that way, I think it was too large. You know, I wanted to have, you know, everybody in their voices, you know, and so there were too many voices because they drowned everybody out. I don't know what that will look like or should look like, but I take your point, and it's a good one, that whatever we do, there should be some AU representative. And Nick has this information, so we'll keep that in mind.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, our last question comes from Ben Bergman, Commissioner Bergman.
Thank you. Thank you so much, council member. I hope this is not going to open up too much of a can of worms with you and extend the meeting too long, but I think it's important to raise. I wanted to ask you about the comp plan, the comprehensive plan. In particular, at I guess our previous meeting, I shared the letter that you wrote to the community that I thought was very well reasoned, and I encourage everyone to read it. And since then, of course, there's been, I think, a kind of scurrilous attack on you in the Washington Post and in an op-ed. But the comp plan it's a live issue. So I just wanted to kind of encourage you to, for a few minutes, to kind of talk to the community about the comp plan and your position in case they didn't read the letter, which they should.
Okay.
But this is a good opportunity.
There was a group of people, not from Ward 3, who got together and wrote something, I think it's in the Saturday or Sunday paper, called Local Opinions. And what they did is they criticized me for my view on the comp plan, saying that I was going to cause gentrification and I was against affordable housing, all of which was nonsense. And I hope you were able to read my letter to the editor that responded to that. I was only given so many words, but I did respond to it. Here's the thing about affordable housing and the comp plan. There are people who have tried to marry the idea of reducing density, not having more units, more housing, with affordable housing. I don't even understand their argument. To me, the baseline for having more affordable housing is to have more housing. And then to use the tools that we have. See, the people who are saying this are saying, yeah, this is going to be housing just for, rich people and, expensive apartments and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be. We can have, an enhanced inclusionary zoning set of rules. On top of that, we can use our Housing Production Trust Fund and other levers that we have to make sure that if we're increasing the stock of housing, that we will get affordable housing. That to me makes sense. I don't actually understand. And, I don't know if you saw Matt Fruman's piece recently, who said, you're attacking Mary because you're saying she's for gentrification. We're already gentrified over here, people. So the comp plan, as it relates to Ward 3, is not going to add to gentrification. We're beyond that now. The question is whether we're going to have more units and whether we're going to use levers outside of the comp plan. And by the way, the comp plan says, and the council voted on this, that the top consideration when people want a variance or they want some relief from whatever the zoning requirements are, the top amenity that they have to satisfy is affordable housing. But the comp plan of itself is not an affordable housing device, okay? It just lays the groundwork. And so you need these other instruments to get affordable housing. So, I mean, that's kind of what that's about. And thank you for having read my letter. Sometimes I put out these letters and they're rather lengthy. What a surprise. But I hope people read them because, I want them to understand my reasoning. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's extremely thoughtful. Everyone should read it. And I thank you for the position you've taken. I think it is excellent. So thank you for that.
And we're going to have a test on the letter at the next ANC meeting, right?
We'll try.
I'll add that to the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Mary, thank you so much for taking time to be here with us and for your service to the city over many, many years. Thank you for your expertise that you bring and the compassion to which you do that as well. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
And
I don't have to stay, right?
Well, thank you. No, ma'am. You are free to leave.
Okay. Because I'm sure it's going to be.
But that doesn't mean that
exciting. But I do have some other things. One of which is to inject one of my old cats with insulin. But so I don't want that to go too late.
Right.
Okay. So I'm.
Well,
leaving.
you're on to your next duty. Thank you so much for being here. All right.
Everybody, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, now we have a specific item related to the history of restrictive covenants in ANC 3D, and we have Mary Cherkowski here with us as well. I hope I got your name right.
Yes, and Madam Chair, I'll be glad to introduce her if I could.
Thank you. Yes, yes, sir.
So this is sort of a change of pace. Some of you have lived in this neighborhood for virtually your whole lives, or certainly your adult lives. Some of us are more newcomers, but I find that I've been here for 30 some odd years, but I still find that I'm learning things every day about this neighborhood. And the other day, my wife was watching a lecture on Ollie, and I walked in and stayed to listen. And she was listening to our guest tonight, Laura Chakowski, who was talking about segregation across the city in the past. And she specifically mentioned Wesley Heights, where I live, as in terms of restrictive covenants. And I talked to her and whether she could come and talk to us about our neighborhoods in terms of the past with regard to restrictive covenants across all of our neighborhoods, not just Wesley Heights. And she said she could, and she would put it into the context of what was going on in the city, across the city, to put it in context, because of course, what was happening here in Wesley Heights or Palisades was not a unique situation. So Mara is a historian, and she is a non-resident senior scholar at George Washington University, Institute of Public Policy. And I could tell you a lot more about her, but time is short, so I want to make sure you hear from her instead of me. So Mara, if you could, I think you want to share your slides, which you can do.
Right, okay.
So go right ahead.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Well, let's see what we can do here. Oh, it should.
Made you a co-host, so you should be able to now.
There we are.
Here we go. Let's see if I've got that under from the beginning. There we go. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me. Thanks for staying up. It's late. I'm going to quickly run through the history of housing segregation in DC, how the real estate and banking industries shaped the city's racial landscape, how the federal government reinforced segregation and actually mandated it, and how all this led to where we are today, enormous racial inequality in wealth and home ownership in DC and around the country. Actually, GW connections are sort of minor. I have a company called Prologue DC, historical research firm. The rise in racial segregation in the early 20th century coincided with the growth of Washington's African-American community. Black families have been leaving the South for Washington for decades. Drawn here by the existing sizable Black community, it was consistently 1/4 to 1/3 of the total population, and DC's excellent educational and unique employment opportunities. Around World War I, the exodus from the South picked up in what became known as the Great Migration. The city was physically expanding during the early 20th century as streetcar lines extended into what was then called the suburbs. That's where you are, and all Petworth and all north of Florida Avenue. Country estates and farms were subdivided for new housing. This is a promotional brochure about Columbia Heights, just north of the old city. The developers were marketing racial homogeneity as essential to creating safe, stable neighborhoods, and thus to retaining property values, or so they believed. Nowhere in the District of Columbia can be found a community freer from the objectionable classes than that on the Heights, and there is every assurance that present conditions will continue. Yes, they would continue because developers placed racially restrictive covenants in the deeds of many of the new houses in Columbia Heights, and they did this all around the district. Here's a 1927 deed for a property in Palisades. It contains a few restrictive covenants, including a racial covenant. Said land shall at no time be sold, conveyed, rented, or leased to any person of African descent. Restrictions like this were common all across the country in the first half of the 20th century. This is a 1934 deed for Foxhall with a similar racial covenant. Here's a covenant from Spring Valley written in 1935. It applied not only to African Americans, but also to any person of the Semitic race, blood, or origin, defined as Armenians, Jews, Hebrews, Persians, and Syrians. It was okay to have servants from any background, though. In the 1920s, white neighborhood groups started writing covenants too. This one was for 66 lots in Wesley Heights. It had a broad scope and was effective for 50 years. Covenants were totally legal. The courts would enforce them until the late 1940s. The Washington Real Estate Board's Code of Ethics contained this provision, added about 1924. No property in a white section shall ever be sold, rented, advertised, or offered to colored people. The newspapers furthered segregation too. They ran ads like this 1914 one for Chevy Chase, suburb of restrictions, and this 1925 ad for Petworth, east of Rock Creek Park, restricted Northwest neighborhood. Here's some of that massive Petworth development for white families only. The newspapers also helped out by indicating which properties were available to African Americans. In general, if an ad did not specify for colored, the property was for whites only. The papers continued this practice until 1960. This map shows some of the areas where we found covenants so far, mostly the northern and central areas east of Rock Creek Park. That's where we've concentrated our work so far, mostly. Many of the areas that do not show covenants, or do not show very many, are areas we haven't fully researched yet. But it's clear that there were many east of the Anacostia River and west of Rock Creek Park. Blue means covenants written by developers, and red means covenants filed by neighborhood groups. Here's a closer view. And here's the same map, but with demographic data added for 1940. The key at the lower right tells you the darker the color, the greater the percentage of African Americans on a block. This area here was St. Philip's Hill, an African American community that formed around Battery Kemble after the Civil War. The community's cemetery is still there on Chainbridge Road, as is a former school that closed in 1941. It's since been turned into housing, I think. At its height, the community comprised about 100 families, and African Americans owned the entire hillside between Loughborough Road, MacArthur Boulevard, Chainbridge Road, and Arizona Avenue. By 1938, though, only 7 or 8 families remained. This 1938 petition covenant claimed a portion of the former St. Philip's Hill community for whites only. It covers this area here. In a current research project, we bought a sample of 20,000 DC deeds, and we have mapped from out of those 2,100 covenants so far. We have another 900 to go, but there's 2,100 on here. And it shows how widespread covenants were. Your area is is west of the blue lines. The Federal Housing Administration was created in 1934 to insure mortgages and building loans as part of an effort to boost home ownership and housing construction during the Great Depression. FHA bought completely into the prevailing racist practices. This excerpt from its manual says, if a neighborhood is to retain stability, it is necessary that properties continue to be occupied by the same social and racial classes. Here's another section recommending racially restrictive covenants. FHA backed loans only for housing that was segregated. In reality, it mostly backed loans for whites only housing. and this policy stayed in place until 1950. The white banks, which was most banks, had always discriminated against African Americans, and now FHA helped them do this by producing maps showing neighborhoods they considered risky to lend in. This was called redlining because African American immigrant or mixed areas were colored red. There was no redlining map for DC, but here's one for New Orleans so you can see what I'm talking about. And here's the legend for that map. The green areas are best, blue is still desirable, yellow is definitely declining, and red is hazardous. That is, red areas were too risky to lend in, and those were the areas where Black people lived. Back to racial covenants. White owners sometimes tested the covenants by trying to ignore them and selling to Black buyers who were willing to pay top dollar for a house. But neighbors might sue to stop or reverse the sale. There were numerous lawsuits over covenants around the country during the 1920s through the 1940s. We've identified about 4 dozen in DC. Each black pin on this map is a property involved in a covenant lawsuit. They're mostly in the area around Howard University, which is here. That's McMillan Reservoir. The blue areas are properties with covenants. Charles Hamilton Houston was a top civil rights attorney associated with Howard University School of Law and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. He handled many of the cases we've mapped, and although he lost many of them, he used those cases to hone his arguments. A set of restrictive covenant cases finally went to the Supreme Court in 1947, and Houston was the attorney who argued the DC cases, successfully this time. On May 3rd, 1948, the Supreme Court ruled that racially restrictive covenants could no longer be enforced by the courts. This map shows DC's demographics for 1940 when covenants were in effect and the courts were upholding them. Keep your eye on the St. Philip's Hill area all the way over to the left, because it was gone by 1950. Covenants had been ruled unenforceable, and there'd been some shift of African Americans into previously restricted areas east of Rock Creek Park. Development was also moving them out of some of their longtime communities in wards 3 and 4. The city's population was now a little more than 1/3 Black. When housing restrictions fell, and then the Supreme Court declared school segregation unconstitutional in 1954, whites left the city for the suburbs, especially those living east of the park. This was referred to as white flight. In fact, white families were being enticed to the suburbs with huge new affordable and segregated FHA financed subdivisions and new federally funded highways to get people to and from jobs in the city. Those same highway projects were wiping out Black neighborhoods, by the way. Real estate agents who make money by selling houses and could make even more off Black people raced to move Black families onto white blocks. This was called block busting because once a Black family moved to a block, most of the white families would move away. Unscrupulous realtors used scare tactics to get whites to move. Some DC neighborhoods changed from all white to virtually all Black almost overnight. In 1957, DC became the first major US city with a majority Black population. Whoops, I was supposed to stay here. Signs like this were used in Shepherd Park in the northern corner of the district to try to maintain a diverse neighborhood. By 1960, DC was about 54% Black. As in many other cities, the 1960s were a decade of disinvestment in the urban core and investment in the suburbs instead. The suburbs didn't open up to Black people until the 1970s after the passage of the 1968 Fair Housing Act, which outlawed discrimination in housing rentals and sales. Actually, the Fair Housing Act was signed just after civil disturbances broke out in response to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th, 1968, and in response to years of neglect, both by government and by private investors. This is 1970. You can see that the area west of Rock Creek Park didn't see the kind of change most of the rest of the city did. DC's Black population was at its height in 1970 at about 71%. but it's fallen ever since. This is 14th and Irving Streets in Columbia Heights in 1972. This was one of the riot corridors. I'm jumping to 2000 here. We had to change the format on our census maps because DC stopped being just black and white. Blue is white people, pink is black people, and green is Hispanic Latinx. When large-scale investment finally started returning to DC in the early 2000s, the neglected neighborhoods in the center of the city were ripe for redevelopment. Real estate was very cheap. The intense gentrification that's occurred since has priced out many longtime residents. DC's Black population dropped below 50% in 2012. In the decade 2000 to 2010, 38,000 African Americans moved out of the city, while 55,000 white people moved in. This is 14th and Irving Streets now, the same intersection I showed you a few slides back. Most of the development you see here took place 14 or 15 years ago. Maybe you saw this article in the Washington Post real estate section several weeks ago about a Denver couple getting their house appraised so they could apply for a home improvement loan. The husband was home when the appraiser came, and the value came in at $405,000. Since they had done their research and were expecting $500,000, they called a second appraiser. This time only the wife was home, and the house was appraised at $550,000. Most Americans accumulate wealth through home ownership, but for decades, the real estate and banking industries and the federal government deliberately prevented black people from entering the real estate market or made it much more expensive for them. That is why one of the big reasons why the racial wealth gap is so enormous. Thank you for your time. Please check out mappingsegregationdc.org, where we have dozens of other maps, and you can email me at this address if you have questions or would like to be added to the Mapping Segregation email list. We send out project updates only very occasionally. And if you'd like to help out with the research, we would love to have you. Just get in touch.
Mara, thank you very much for this presentation. It was really interesting. In the chat while you were presenting, we did get a couple questions and requests for you to share your presentation. Is that something that you might be able to share with us for our ANC website?
This is recorded, so can you just use it on
Yes.
there?
I also told people that they could certainly watch the recording on our website as well.
Yeah, I'd rather not give you the slides because I don't always have permission for the photos and things like that. So.
Okay, no problem.
Madam Chairman, we can certainly flag the minute where where the presentation starts, so people won't have to watch the entire meeting in order to watch this presentation. So we'll be glad to do that, and we don't need to have first slide. That'd be good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for staying so late beyond the allotted time. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mara. I think many of us knew pieces of that story, but you're going through that and putting it all together and also flagging it important for our community, our own neighborhoods. That's very helpful. We appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right. Shall we move on? Ben, I think we're moving over to you right now.
Yes.
Let's
Let me. Can you see? I don't know if you can see my desktop or not here. I'm just presenting very briefly. I just wanted to flag for everyone in the community that we will be having a town hall meeting co-hosted by myself, Commissioner Damiana, and Commissioner Elkins to discuss the safety and bicycle improvements for New Mexico Avenue. If you've attended the the 2 meetings ago, or was it last meeting? Now it's all blurred together. But DDOT at one of our recent meetings, and so the slides are available on the ANC website, presented their initial proposal for proposed bike lane, protected bike lane on New Mexico, Tumlaw, and 37th Street. They have, since that presentation, they've been presenting to the other ANCs that this would go through. They've met with our transportation committee, and we have shared with them many questions and comments. And so as part of that process, they've already come back with additional configurations and alternatives to the initial 2 alternatives that they presented. But we would just like to engage the community to talk about generally folks' views on New Mexico Avenue. I know I represent part of that street, and I know that a lot of people have concerns about safety issues for pedestrians, for cyclists. There are accidents and some severe injuries that have occurred in recent years. So we'd like to engage with people, talk about their proposals, get people's feedback. This is the sort of rough preliminary agenda, what you can expect. We're going to give an overview of some of the issues that are sort of facing different types of road users on New Mexico, because they're not, each sort of class of user has different issues, and sometimes there are conflicts between the two. We're going to do a sort of a quick overview of the crash, injury, and property damage data that we've gotten from the city. I think it's useful for people to think about when they look at the proposals. Then we're going to do a very quick review of sort of kind of the previous things that have happened, both on bicycle improvements, but also sort of other safety plans that have been identified and other studies for curb extensions or sidewalks, et cetera, and talk about the ones that haven't happened or the ones that did happen. Then we'll talk about the bike lanes, and we'll go into detail about that. And then we'll sort of, together with that, talk about some of the other improvements that the ANC could potentially lobby for if there was interest, lobby DDOT to incorporate into the plan. Since I think it's safe to say if DDOT does move forward on this proposal, they're not going to be coming back to New Mexico anytime soon. So this is sort of the time to think about other issues up beyond the bike lane. And then what everyone will probably be there for, so I guess you could miss all this and come at the end, but I advise you not to. We'll have an open resident forum where we would encourage people to just, respond to everything you've heard, respond to other things you didn't hear, and we will be taking copious notes and not talking much during that period. And all of that will then be funneled into the Transportation Committee's report that will go to the ANC and help us think about our position and think about specifically, is there a particular configuration that we would prefer, assuming that we would prefer any? Is there a hierarchy of configurations that we would like? Are there things that we absolutely want DDOT to deliver in addition to the bike lane, et cetera, et cetera? All of that is really something that needs to be driven by input from the community and not just, although we've already had significant input, but we would like to just have folks attend if they can. So the Zoom information is on the website on anc3d.org. You can email us for it if you need it, but it's going to be on April 18th from 2 to 3:30. But if people want to keep talking after that, we will stay on to continue to get feedback until people are done.
All right, thanks so much, Ben. I think that concludes our discussion section, and now we're on to resolutions. We are behind. I thought that we would be at around the 9 o'clock hour, and we are classically at 9:40. So I am sorry to everyone for how long things have run so far. But I hope people appreciate the content of what we're delivering. The first thing I think that I added, and Steve Gardner was here to present, but actually needed to head on out, was just a quick resolution that we have for Chuck, and just an appreciation. And this has been a few months in the making. Sorry, Chuck, that this has taken so long. And so the resolution is one that I think I should be able to share quickly, but there is nothing controversial in this resolution. It simply states the years of service as chairman and as vice chair, and that we are especially grateful for your contributions to the commission. So with that, I'd like to know whether we can move to the question of voting on this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 No more roll calls? Aye.
Well, we can do roll call. All right.
We'll do unanimous consent on this
Okay.
one.
I was
Very
thinking
good.
this one wasn't too controversial. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Elkins, and we've got some art headed your way as well. And thank you, Troy. Happy Fun Ball. I was about ready to reject you from the meeting until you sent me a text. All right, why don't we move on to our next item, is one that was not new on the agenda. This is an endorsement of our proposed protected bike lanes on Virginia Ave, and I'm going to hand this over to Commissioner Elkins and the Transportation Committee.
Good, thank you. Well, this is a recommendation from the Transportation Committee that we endorse this bike lane. This is a subject of a notice of intent from the Department of Transportation. You might think, well, this is awfully far away from us, but actually it is a key element in getting from our neighborhood to downtown. And particularly as we come out of COVID, hopefully there'll be more people on bicycles going downtown. I was down there the other day, and my goodness, it seems like a deserted city. So I think this makes it so much more, so much safer to and less stressful to get down around to the White House area. So there's a letter that's been posted, it's been circulated, and I would propose that the commission adopt it. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
And is there discussion?
I think it's great.
Madam Chairman, I turn it back to you. There needs to be a vote.
Shall I do it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. How about Riley, would you mind doing roll call on the remaining resolutions?
Yeah, 3D01.
Thank you so much.
Aye.
3D02.
Aye.
3D03.
Aye.
3D04.
Aye.
3D05. We'll come back
Madam
to 3D05.
Chairman, Madam Chairman, Commissioner Nanavati informed me earlier that she's feeling some after effects from her vaccination, or COVID vaccination. So I'll manage her items, and she's taken off for the evening.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, congratulations to her.
3D06, aye.
3D07.
Aye.
3D08.
Aye.
3D09. 3D10.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on, we have a letter to approve the oral testimony for Commissioner Elkins to the Zoning Committee hearing on American University's campus plan. So I'll turn it over to Commissioner Elkins.
Actually, there's one item on the agenda ahead of that, Madam Chairman. Do you want to take that first, or that's the
I am sorry.
the OANC testimony?
Oh, yes. Okay. Approval of the testimony of the OANC budget hearings in April.
And there's also a letter that is the letter that actually I'm proposing that I would use as the template for my testimony. And so let me just briefly summarize it. This is essentially asking the council to give more money and resources to and staff to the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions in 3 areas. One is collaboration citywide on citywide issues. Number 2 is a separate fund which commissions could use to get confidential, impartial, legal, or other expert advice and assistance to make more informed decisions on complex issues. This is, I think, particularly important to other commissions that don't have as much money as our commission is lucky to have because of our frugal saving over the last few years. And thirdly, an advisory board to the OANC to give advice on how OANC can better serve commissioners. And so this letter actually has been coordinated across a number of other ANC commissioners, and I hope to we'll see signatures on a twin or sister letter that would go to the mayor and to the council member Robert White. But I'm asking whether there is support here on this commission for this letter, and that's the first. I guess let's do these in 2 different things. Let me ask. I would like to propose that ANC 3D adopt this letter, and I'm looking for a second.
A second.
And discussion. Madam Chair, I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
301.
Riley, would you?
Sorry. 301.
Aye.
Chuck, that's you.
Aye. 302.
303.
Aye.
304.
Aye.
Okay, it's gone to 306.
Aye.
307.
Aye.
308.
Aye.
309. 3D10.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, as a
All
second,
right.
motion, I'd like to ask authorization to represent the commission in front of the budget hearing on this topic following more or less the terms of this letter. So that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Oh, all right, Riley.
301.
Aye.
302.
Aye.
303.
Aye.
304.
Aye.
305. Oh, she's absent. Sorry. 306.
Aye.
307.
Aye.
308.
Aye.
309. 3D10.
Aye.
All right. All right, now we can, I believe at least we can move on to approval of the oral testimony presented by Commissioner Elkins to the Zoning Committee for American University.
So by way of background for 60 seconds here, you did authorize me to represent the commission in front of the Zoning Commission for the campus plan. And I had prepared some testimony, and then I saw the statements from the opposing parties in which they told a version of history which was contradicted by documents which they had signed earlier, and I felt that could not pass. And so I did adjust my testimony to show that. I did not accuse them of any malfeasance, but simply tried to show the facts. That testimony does not receive great weight unless it's endorsed by this council, the commission. So I'm moving, but let me be clear. If you do not feel that you want to vote to endorse it, that's okay. I mean, I have given the oral testimony and it was heard by the commission, so it's not like it doesn't get delivered.
In other words, too late, right?
No, I mean, it means that it would be given great weight by the zoning commission. So that's the choice that this commission gets to make at this point. So I move that the ANC 3D endorse the letter that essentially says that this represents the view of ANC 3D. Looking for a second.
Second.
No, second. Any discussion?
I just want to
Okay.
say,
Hit it, Riley.
wait. I just want to say people should go on YouTube, be one of the 15 people to watch the zoning commission clip, because they're not that many, only 15, and watch Chuck's tour de force performance. Was way lengthier than they expected, but it's well worth it, and he served us well. So I recommend that.
For sure, to echo that, he testified for over an hour, probably answering questions perfectly. And I was a little frustrated that, somebody decided to suggest that his testimony did not reflect the commission, because clearly it did. But I know my constituents are very grateful for the Chuck's work on the campus plan. And it was certainly a marathon that he testified that long. So very impressive.
Thank you. So,
All right, Riley.
3D01.
Aye.
3D02.
Aye.
3D03.
Aye.
3D04.
Resounding aye.
3D05 is absent. 3D06.
Aye.
3D07.
Aye.
3D08.
Aye.
3D09. And 3D10.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We are moving on to, and I think Commissioner Shrieky, you're taking this one, Basin MacArthur liquor license renewal.
That's correct, Madam Chairman. Thank you. I'm going to ask unanimous consent to postpone this item until the May meeting. The reason for that is that I believe Commissioner Nanavati wanted to include a written statement, and it's not there. Their hearing won't be until after our May meeting, so we'll have time to deal with it then. So I ask unanimous consent to postpone.
Okay. Any objection? All right, we are postponing that. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chairman,
Next
moving
on
on
our
to the, sorry.
Go for it. 5182
I
Fulton
apologize.
Street, BZA.
Yes. So again, on this one, I'm going to ask if Mr. Halligan would be able to unmute himself, because I have a question for him that's pretty relevant to our ability to consider this tonight.
Just using a rag. Yep, I'm unmuted. Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Nanavati's letter does not refer to either a hearing, an application number, or a hearing date for this. Have you gotten either of those from the BZA?
No, so I was advised by my builder and architect that I should assemble the package of support from my neighbors, which I gave to Manavati, and to get the ANC approval, a letter from Kate, basically, to submit all together. She indicated that Form 129 was the way to go. So I've communicated that to my builder. So he's going to submit everything I've given her to create the case and get on the BZA calendar, and then send her the case number such that she could attach this to it. It was a procedural thing. I didn't know the sequence.
That's great. That's no problem. That's what we're here for. So we will submit the, any correct forms from our end when we actually take action on this. But without a case number or a hearing date, I'm pretty reluctant to take it up. That doesn't mean that we won't approve it when it's the proper time to. It looks like a pretty straightforward application, so I think we probably will approve it. But I'm going to also move that we postpone this until, well, subject to the call of the chair, because I believe we don't have actionable information from BZA about when this is going to go forward. So I'm going to ask unanimous consent for that.
So can I just comment on that, please?
Sure.
So my understanding is that the BZA calendar might take up to 3 months just to get on. And if it requires another month before you guys will actually submit it, and we don't want to bring the case until we have the support of the ANC. Moving in 1 month increments is just, it's fairly costly. I'm carrying 2 properties to do this.
I understand. We'll defer to some input from my colleagues. I might be reading this the wrong way, but usually the way that it works is that we vote on a submitted application, and we tend to vote on it the month of the hearing or before, depending on how the dates work out. You have neither an application number or a hearing date yet, so it's hard to say that we actually have a package to vote on. We have and we're not approving it, we're just supporting it. Right. We have your drawings, and your drawings look good, but yeah. Does anyone want to pipe in on that?
Well, I think we will not hold you up. I think it's that.
No, right.
Concern. We will not hold you up. So
Yeah.
You don't have to wait an extra month for us. Well, we will, if you let us know as soon as you've gotten the number, then we can take it up at the next meeting.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate you explaining the sequence. So, right, as long as I should just press forward, and as soon as we get something, you can just submit. So that's all good. Actually, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and follow up with the BZA. If you're running into dead ends for whatever reason, you shouldn't. But if you are, then contact Kate or one of us. Will be more than happy to follow up for you. So, Madam Chairman, with that, I ask unanimous consent to postpone consideration of 5182 Fulton's BZA application, subject to the call of the chair.
Are there any objections? Okay, with that, we will postpone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. All right, moving on from here, we've got 4457 MacArthur, which I think this time around should be a pretty quick discussion.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. My name is JP Simkwitz. I represent ANC 3D09, which includes the properties located at 4457 MacArthur and 4459 MacArthur. The ANC heard testimony from interested parties. And
JP, we can't hear you too well. I don't know if you have something covered.
Down there.
Is that better, Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Much better. Thank you.
Sorry about that. In January, ANC 3D heard testimony from the interested parties at 4457 and 4459 MacArthur, and then comments from neighbors and other people that chose to participate. In February, we also heard had a discussion on some tangentially related matters. And here today, I have prepared a resolution that Commissioner Bergman edited, and Commissioner Elkins and Commissioner Shrieky had some involvement in editing, and I thank them all for their for the skills that they had in perfecting this letter. And I ask that the ANC adopt this resolution, which rejects the application for special exception submitted by the applicant, which will go to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And I ask for a second.
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 All right, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I guess I
good. Oh, yes.
I know the meeting is running along, so I'll just say something very briefly. I began this process in January very open to this project. I think in general, this ANC needs to be supportive of mixed use development, multifamily development, as particularly along major corridors. But I think there were many, many compelling arguments for why this project had extraordinarily negative impacts on the immediate neighbor. And I don't think those concerns were adequately addressed or even really addressed in a good faith manner by the applicant. And so that's why I feel very comfortable supporting this resolution.
Thanks, Ben. Any other discussion points here? All right, Riley, it's your turn. Hit it.
3D01.
Aye.
3D02.
Aye.
3D03.
Aye.
3D04.
Aye.
3D05 is absent. 3D06.
Aye.
3D07.
Aye.
3D08.
Aye.
3D09.
Aye.
3D10.
Aye.
All right, thank you all. And thank you to JP and Ben and Michael for all working together and not having competing resolutions. That would have taken another longer time, so thank you very much. All right, we are now on to new additions to our schedule, which includes an endorsement of the Dalringer Bicycle Fundraiser route. Oh,
Madam Chairman?
am I missing something, Riley? Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen, if I may, so that you can see the text of this letter, which I wrote during the beginning of the meeting. I apologize that it was that I had forgotten about this item. Can everyone see okay?
Yes.
So it's fairly straightforward. It's not controversial at all. I believe we also heard from them previously. They just had to redo the route. Really, they had to cut it quite a bit due to I think coronavirus concerns. And its effect on our ANC area is almost exactly the same as it was before. I think I've put forward a fairly straightforward letter of support for the new proposed route, and I ask unanimous consent to approve the letter.
Can I request a friendly amendment?
You may.
Okay. Could we add the map as a secondary attachment exhibit to the letter?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Shariki.
I will second.
I had a question about your letter. I'm sorry. It talks about the September bell ringer thing, and then it talks about October. Am I getting confused?
No, you're not. You're offering a very useful, friendly amendment. Thank you. It's on the 23rd of October. You know why that was? Is that I was looking at our previous work on this, and at that time it was planned for September. So thank you. So my unanimous consent request stands if you want to.
All right, I will second. Is there any discussion? All right, Riley?
No objections.
Yeah,
No objections? No objections. How about that, Michael?
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
All right, with that, thanks so much, Michael. With that, we are moving on to a resolution so that we can approve Commissioner Elkins to spend up to $200 as needed on various functions, such as tonight's edition for Zoom, so that we could add additional people to the call and have that approved ahead of an actual meeting. So it would be up to $200.
To just add to that, Madam Chairman, there are times when a judgment has to be made between meetings about whether we need to increase the capability of the Zoom in case we have a number of people expected. And I mistakenly in this case, but in good faith, thought there was a possibility that the presentation by the council member would draw more than 100 people. I've experienced in other situations where the 101 person comes to sign into a meeting and they are excluded, and I didn't think we wanted to do that. And I think there may be future times when we have a controversial issue or whatever, where we may want to provide that safety net. It costs $50 to provide that safety net. And what I'm asking for is an approval of having done it now for this meeting, but also ability to spend up to $200 going forward to the rest of the fiscal year in case I make this judgment again. So I'm asking you to trust me that I won't spend it willy-nilly, but need to make a decision. You don't really know how many people are going to show up. So that's what the resolution is.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to authorize Chuck to use the money for those purposes, and I ask unanimous consent to make the outlay to him.
And to approve.
Thank you. Any objections?
And to approve the one I've already made, okay?
Yeah.
Is that part of your resolution?
That's part of the outlay. Sorry, Chuck.
Thank you.
That's the outlay. All right, any objections? Oh, okay, that is approved.
Madam Chair,
did I miss any?
Before we move on, I just wanted to suggest the potential of we could live stream our meetings on either like YouTube or Facebook, which would allow an unlimited amount of people to watch it. And then it would also make sure that the meetings are accessible on YouTube in the future with closed captioning that's automatic. So people who need that can watch at their convenience without having to download the video from Dropbox. I don't think that makes what Chuck is recommending any less important, but it's still something maybe we should consider for the future. So I figured I would just mention that as a possibility.
That's a great idea. And potentially maybe could we trial that for our next meeting?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure I can work with Riley on that.
Okay.
Just to understand that, am I correct that if you're watching it on YouTube, you cannot ask a question or something like that? You don't get to participate. That's
Yeah,
right.
you're correct.
So this
Yeah.
is not a substitute for participation. It's an additional way to bring in more viewers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Madam Chairman, I had two other resolutions that I had asked to be added to the agenda. I don't know where they fit. That was the DDOT testimony and the DCRA testimony in front of for the budget.
Thank you. Yes, right here. Sorry, we moved past them. All right. Do you want to just give us a quick overview?
Yeah, so as Mary Chey says, we have these budget hearings coming forward, and this is the chance to try to persuade her and other council members to squeeze some money out of somebody else and give it to places where we feel there's some need. And in the case of DDOT, you can see, and I sent you testimony I gave on the oversight hearings, and I'm suggesting that the budget testimony flow from this. And so in the case of sidewalks, that the council should allocate enough money so that over a 10-year period, we could build all the new sidewalks that DDOT criteria for cite as priority sidewalks. We've already written this in a letter to DDOT before, and that essentially to the effect that the ones that go to schools and parks and businesses, and that they improve their sidewalk repair, that they expand their regional planning between Maryland and the district, and engage ANCs more in their public outreach, public engagement. So those are what I testified before on, and I think they make sense for the budget, and I would ask for authorization to testify on behalf of the commission. Why that makes sense, I think I've explained before, and that is if I testify on behalf of myself, I have 3 minutes. If I testify on behalf of the ANC commission, I get 5 minutes, and sometimes 3 minutes is really tight to explain some concepts. So I would like to have the extra time, but if you're worried that I'm going to ask for something that you don't approve, you don't need to approve it. I can still testify. And in fact, all of you can testify. I would encourage more of you to do this. But anyway, that's my motion to approve this general outline for my testimony.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. I think this is one that we can do by unanimous consent as well. Any objection? No. Okay, this is approved.
Okay, Madam Chair, moving to the second.
Thank you very.
The second one is DCRA, and there I testified that they have a really bad record. 45% of the inspections that they make on rental properties, they actually get abated. That is 55% of the times that they find a violation of the rental property, it doesn't get fixed. And I'm suggesting that they need to put more resources into trying to get abatement, not to pay for it, but to run a good enforcement program so that a landlord who is running a unhealthy apartment and he gets caught by DCRA is followed by DCRA until they shape up and actually fix the violation. So that's the first point. The second point is there are a lot of businesses that operate in this city who are not licensed, and DCRA does not have a good program to go find them and get them licensed so that the city has some control over their performance. And so they need some more money for that. And I think those, just a second. Oh, finally, one of the reasons these things never get repaired is because they have to go through the Office of Administrative Hearings, and it takes months and months, and then that office doesn't have the authority to get them to abate. So doing something about the administrative hearing process so that landlords don't use it as a way in which to avoid enforcement. So I'm asking for unanimous consent to allow me to testify along those lines at the budget hearing, asking for enough resources from to be allocated to DCRA so they can't tell me as they do before, they'd love to do it, but they don't have the resources. So,
any discussion? No? All right. Any objections? Okay, this is unanimously approved. Thank you, Chuck, for your work here. That's important. All right. Any other official actions that we need to work through before we move on to commission business? Nope. All right. Moving on to approval of the March minutes. Commissioner Damiano.
I move that we approve the minutes from the March 3rd, 2021 meeting.
Second.
I will second. Any discussion? Any objections? All right, they are approved. Treasurer's report, Commissioner Bergman.
Hello. So this is going to be a slightly longer treasurer's report because we have finally opened our savings account, which was a little bit of a saga. So the opening balance for our checking account was $58,924.35. The ending balance for March 31st of the checking account is $13,888.35. I'll get to where the money went in a second. We've had no income. With the withdrawals, we had $45,000 withdrawal that I transferred to the savings account. We had previously authorized the treasurer to decide at his discretion how much to put in the two accounts. So I chose $45,000. We had $36 in expenditures, $33 on a stop payment charge for a lost check that was that was posted on this statement but the check was from last month, and $3 to PNC Bank for paper statements for added security. On our savings account, the opening balance was $0. The ending balance for the month is $45,000.19. We earned 19 cents in interest payment, no withdrawals, no expenditures. The account maintenance charge was waived. So eventually we will have that fee.
I think there's one other item we should mention.
Yes.
And that is the fact that it appears that OENC is denying us approval for the grant that we gave to Ward 3 something match. I've forgotten. Anyway, they bought groceries for people during the COVID times. And so they want to deduct $2,000 from us on that. And they have not acted officially on the second grant, but there's a sense that they're going to disapprove our grant to the homeless shelter over next to the
that was
station. I've forgotten the name of it. But anyway, I would like to authorize our treasurer with assistance from me and anybody else who's willing to help to pursue these matters on appeal or any way we can do, because I personally believe that these are mistakes on the part of OANC and should not stand. So we need to be. It'd be good to have authorization, but we can be obnoxious or a little obnoxious.
I can be obnoxious, as people have found out in the last few months. I can be obnoxious, but.
And I think Troy wants to talk as well about this. Sorry.
Well, first off, Godspeed on challenging those grants. OANC, you guys may say you think they're wrong. OANC is wrong. And it should be as simple as black and white. The emails of supporting the grant in the first place before it was approved should be enough to carry the day. But that's not why I'm speaking. Actually, it was about the $33 stop check payment. If I'm not mistaken, Ben, I assume this is the one you're referring to. This is actually from pre-COVID. The check it was a voided check.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was on me. This isn't on Ben. This check was voided right before COVID hit, and then I still don't have access to my office for the last I don't know what it is, 13 months at this point. OANC has been fully aware since like week 3 of the shutdown that the check is in this place, but that's what the $33 stop payment was, because it expiring wasn't good enough for them. They actually wanted us to stop the payment as well.
Well,
so
there's
this check
also another stop check charge, which I'm responsible for.
Right.
Because you wrote a check to the security fund and
Yes.
gave it to me for safekeeping until we could get past these crazy things at the bank. And
Yep.
I filed it away and didn't find it until I finally gave up and couldn't find it. And I knew we had to do a stop payment on it, so I did. So that's money on my account.
Okay, well, a good lesson is to blame it on the previous treasurer. So,
oh yes, it was all your fault. You should not have given me. You should not have trusted me with that check.
So
I was just gonna let everybody assume it was my fault. So thank you for the two of you. But yeah,
no, it wasn't your fault. Thank you for Troy.
I'm
Sure.
flummoxed over our grant issues because after being part of the training, the treasury training, I asked a lot of questions about grants to the point where I thought Gottlieb was going to kick me off the call because I wanted to make sure we were doing things the right way. And it was clear that we were almost belt and suspendering ourselves too much. So it's frustrating to hear this because there seems to be a lack of alignment between the guidance that we're getting and from an ANC perspective and from a city perspective, and then what's happening from a budget perspective. So that's really frustrating.
It's much worse. We actually had one grant. We applied for, we sent it to them to pre-clear it.
That's what I was going to ask about. Isn't there a paper trail on the shelter for displaced families next to the police department? And okay, and also, I mean, I don't expect much from OANC, having served as treasurer for just half a term, but that, if my memory is correct, that particular grant was approved at the beginning of last term, wasn't it?
July.
It is not this term.
No, it was last July.
So, okay, so that's not the beginning of the last term, but it's a long time ago, and hold on, Chuck. No, the shelter, not the Ward 3 grocery distribution, but
they were both approved more or less the time. I think maybe 1 month apart. On the shelter one, Troy said, let's make sure that Gottlieb is happy with it. And we agreed, and we said there's something to the effect, this grant is valid if OANC says it's fine. We sent it to OANC. They came back with, we'd have to look at the exact language, but it's something like, this makes sense if the money is going to be related to COVID or something like that. And I guess I was chair at the time, and I said, yes, this is related to COVID, and we gave him the check. He now, I think, he has not made a formal decision, but his position, Gottlieb's position, is that buying these materials for these people who were living at the shelter was not related to COVID.
okay. I'm thinking of a grant that we considered when it first opened. So sorry, I stand corrected.
All right. And the one with regard to, just to give another 60 seconds on it, so you know, the one that they have disapproved is for buying groceries. And what we did that he believes we made a mistake on is as follows, that charity did not have a bank account of its own. And we therefore wrote the check to the person who was dispersing the money to the people who were buying the groceries for people. That was a personal name, and therefore they are ruling that that is illegal. I think that's a misinterpretation of the statute and have told them so. But we lost that, at least at the first decision. So we now have to figure out how we appeal. I don't know how you appeal. Either to Gottlieb, which probably is useless, because I think he probably approved this, approved the denial. And so I don't know whether we can go to the council or what. But I see Troy wants to speak.
Yeah, I'll just shut up shortly. Background on the Brooks, the homeless shelter, it was not located in ANC 3D. And it used to be that the regulations were that grants needed to go to the recipients doing business or living within the commission's area. That was relaxed under Robert White's legislation during COVID, saying that ANCs could give money outside their commission area, which technically the Brooks outside of our commission area therefore complied with. So in our request for the pre-clearance of that check, we got back basically an Oracle of Delphi response saying that pre-Robert White legislation, this grant would not be approvable because it's outside your commission area. But of course, we are in post-Robert White legislation era, so you know we can do the ... ourselves.
Which he spoke to us about during a visit to our commission. I remember that. I remember at least.
That's right. And the one that with Sarah Swetzoff of Ward 3 Mutual Aid is that the grant was issued to an organization. It was issued to Ward 3 Mutual Aid. They're the ones who applied. They're the ones who were given the grant. The check was paid to the individual. So it's not, I mean, the check being written to the individual does not, to me and to Chuck, it seems, indicate that the grant was awarded to an individual when that's not the case. So that's a little bit more background. Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe you've authorized Ben and me and others to try to get our money back in a
yes,
professional manner. And we won't burn
yes,
bridges.
absolutely.
Too many, yeah.
It's sort of sad the way that they're ruling here because it means that those smaller non-for-profits that may not have the resources to be able to set up bank accounts can't receive a tiny grant from us. And that's a disappointing world.
I think my pursuit on that one page is to say, before denying this, you should give us the chance to show through documentation and maybe a affidavit that in fact this money did go to this charity, because you're assuming it did not, since the check was written to an individual. The statute it says the grant has to be made to a charity. It doesn't say the check has to be written to them. So I think they're not interpreting the statute correctly, but they at least could, if they say, well, we really don't think the money was spent on these groceries, we think this woman went off to Puerto Rico or something. I think we could get some documentation, and maybe some of you, Paige, maybe because of your professional work, might advise us how we could have documentation that would be persuasive.
I can think through that. Yeah, once we get some advice, happy to think through that. All right, let's see. Do we have any other items on the agenda that we have missed? I see adjournment on the agenda.
I never got a drink. Yeah.
Madam Chairman, we're only 30 minutes.
Second.
We're only 33 minutes over. Congratulations.
I'm shocked at that because I thought this was, congratulations to everyone here who did such a good job preparing. And I am sorry, I had a really tough quarter and little hospitals around the country are starting to feel the brunt of this ongoing COVID crisis. So more to come on that, and some articles in the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal start to come out. So anyways, I appreciate everyone's time and effort this quarter. Special thanks to Commissioner Elkins as well, as always. Can't do it without Elkins, I think is the motto. And with that is, do we have any objections to adjourning the meeting?
I don't have an objection, but I did send Riley an email to make sure that he attaches the exhibit of the structural engineering report to the MacArthur Boulevard thing.
I'm sending you a final version for your approval right now. So
Thank you.
Okay. And then Christian, you and I and Riley and whomever else would like to discuss communication matters as well as the new website. I think those are all things that we can do over email or a brief call. So
I've heard anything back from next door about our next door account. So I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe I can apply again. But the Facebook page is up and running if anybody, and I've been posting to it.
Yeah, I'll follow up with the next door people. I think I can find their government relations contact, hopefully, and see what's up there. And yes, Paige, we should definitely try and circle back via email or something and figure out how to move forward with the website and some other things.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you. All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you
Good
to
meeting.
everyone. Have a great night. Thanks all.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night.